We'd like for you to come and sign up with Eileen. So if you want to have anything to say, we need to have you signed up. Thank you so much. We're going to start the meeting here in a few seconds, okay? I did, microphone, oh, yeah, man. COVID, man, it gets you and slow you down for a while. Yeah. It's such a low rider, you know? No, I think I'm sitting down. I'm gonna bring a pillow next time, sit up higher. Bring a stool, you know? Okay. Okay, welcome everybody to today's meeting, September 26th, 2024. Roll call of officers, please.
Commissioner Uranga. Commissioner Zargis.
Here.
Commissioner Lear.
Here.
Commissioner Jimenez. Commissioner Fisher. Vice Chair Zerniak.
Here.
Chair Acosta.
Present. Okay, item number 2, approval or changes to the agenda, Commissioners?
Move the agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion on the floor. It's second. Any, all those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those? Aye. Okay, all those opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 3, approval of the minutes of September 12th, 2024.
I move that we approve the minutes from the meeting of September 12th, 2024.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor. It's been second. Any discussion on the motion?
I second.
All right, no discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 4, old business, Janine. All right. Okay, item number 5, new business, case number Z24-016, submitted by Patricia Gallegos. Is she present? All right. Yes, the applicant is present. All right, okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Christopher Valencia, 845 North Motel Boulevard.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give today is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Welcome, good morning.
Morgan. For our first case this morning, 5A-Z24-016, we have the owner for La Clínica de Familia and the applicant Patricia Gallegos, who is here today, located down in off of north side of La Fe Avenue in the corner lot of La Paz, of Paz Garcia Court and La Fe Avenue, which is 8 Paz Garcia Court and 185 La Fe Avenue in Mesquite. That area is zoned to D2L, which is a medium density residential, and the request is a zone change on 2 parcels, 2 half-acre parcels from a D2L zone to a C2 zone in order to develop a healthcare clinic for La Clínica de Familia on lots 15 and 16 of the Del Cerro Estates Plat number 2. Here's the location map right there. This is La Fe Avenue. Right here is the Paz Garcia Court and the 2 parcels. This is Paz Garcia Court here in the corner, and this is 185 La Fe Avenue. Here's our aerial photo of the project site. Here you see Stern Drive, I-10 right there, and the entrance to Mesquite. And here we go. Yes, we'll wait. Thank you. Looks like we have some material being passed out. Do you have an extra one for us?
We'll introduce this for the record.
Yes, we will introduce that.
I have those.
And we just found out that's in support of the Z24016, the zone change. And here we're looking at the zoning map. We've got the D2L zone, and the zone change was going to a C2. They're requesting a C2. Right across the street, we have Institute, which is the Del Cerro Community Center. And then we also have the D1L, which is a church, and you can see it's still surrounded by a lot of mixed use and industrial zones. Here's the land use aerial. You see Paz Garcia Court is not paved. La Fe is paved, and these are the two parcels going for the zone change. Prior to September 12, 2006, the subject property was zoned Performance District. In the Performance District, any use could be approved, provided by all standards for the particular use were met and were consistent with the character of the surrounding areas. After September 12, 2006, a county-initiated zone change occurred when it actually created the Vado Community District and was zoned to CR1. In 2017, the UDC was passed, and the property was zoned to D2L, which permits a mixture of single-family site-built homes, manufactured homes, duplex residences. The request for the applicant is a zone change on the 2 half-acre parcels from a D2L to a C2 for the development of a clinic. Parcel A is located on the corner of Paz Garcia Court, and parcel B is on La Fe Avenue. The proposed clinic will be located right in the middle of both parcels. The main access will be from La Fe Avenue, but as well from Paz Garcia Court. Here's the site plan, the conceptual site plan, mind you. The entrance off of here off of La Fe, and I have images to show this, as well as Paz Garcia Court right here. I do also want to call out that this is conceptual, but while visiting, we did notice that there is a drainage easement going right here, right down the middle of lots 15 and 16. And we see here, I'll show you the parcel area, the neighborhood area. This is the entrance into Del Cerro Estates on La Fe Avenue. I'm on Stern Drive right now, looking south, and here's La Fe. Further to the right, you can end up seeing the Carniceria Marquez. It's a butcher shop here. This is also the parking lot for the Carniceria. And here is, in this, mind you, this parcel is zoned C2. This is looking west and looking east on right in front of the entrance, so proposed entrance of La Clínica down La Fe. Right across the street here in the corner, there's Del Cerro, that's the community center. I'm standing on Paz Garcia Court looking down, and again, it is an unpaved road. This will be the second entrance here into the parking lot. And then here, this is looking down Paz Garcia Court, where it basically is just a roundabout in the very end. This real estate sign is actually the very top of that corner of their parcel. This is not the property area, that's the property area. So while surveying the site, I did notice that drainage easement. It's a 40-foot drainage easement. I already knew the size, but couldn't tell. Obviously, didn't have a ruler on me. But we ended up finding that 40-foot drainage easement in the Del Cerro Estates plat number 2 plat. And here, this is actually difficult to read from 75, but there's the 40-foot wide right there, and I went ahead and called it out just to show the flow. So that's something that they'll have to address. Looking at the requirements, the zone change evaluation requirements, there is an area of notification before we go. This is the project area with site number 1, and then these are 300 feet from the property, site property. These were the notifications were sent to these neighbors to let them know that there was a zone change. There was a total of 19 letters that were sent out of notification. They were placed, the ad was placed in the newspaper on time on September 1st, as well as signs were posted in a timely manner and on the website. And here are those notification signs for the neighborhood. The group, the La Clínica group, did have their own petition that they passed around the neighborhood. They said that I support the Clínica Familia building and developing of a community health center in Mesquite to serve residents of Mesquite to include Vado Berino, and they've purchased the unapproved properties at La Fe and Paz Garcia Court in Mesquite. I went ahead and just put the numbers there just to show that it's 62, but every name is shown there. Our staff analysis. The potential number of homes, if applicable, this is not applicable to this zone change for this request. There's going to be no change in population for this commercial use, and there'd also be no impact to demographics for the existing neighborhood. For potential traffic flows and impacts, in anticipation to the increase of traffic flow, La Clinica will develop entrances at La Fe Avenue and Paz Garcia Court in the health center for it to be developed. The entrances will be bi-directional, in and out flow from the property. This is an attempt for the client to ensure positive traffic flow. There's a need for new commercial or residential activity. As stated by the client, there is a need for commercial healthcare in the area. The reclassification of the zone for the purpose of establishing a health center will facilitate the realization of the Comp Plan 2040. La Clinica will need water and sewer capacities to be available for the building. And there was a service request order for a tap for the sewer, and then it's confirmed the capacity with utilities in the office of July 27th. There has not been any environmental assessment done for the property in question, so we don't know if there's any sort of rare animals or plant life. And the impact of the proposed zone change on the surrounding properties. The operation of the health center on the two proposed properties will make the healthcare available and inaccessible remote areas in the county more attractive to the public. Client states that they do not believe the introduction of a health center on the proposed properties will lead to an increase in traffic or noise. The service hours will be from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., closed on weekends, and the health services are needed in Mesquite and the surrounding communities. The implementation of best management practices for the development. So La Clinica has a history of constructing and renovating buildings using the best practices in proper planning and design. The center contracts with the architects, engineers, and construction companies that have significant experience in developing structurally sound and safe buildings. More importantly, La Clinica and other contractors adhere to all building regulations and codes to ensure the safety, health of the building occupants, including the community. Our analysis for the comp plan. The proposed zone change complements surround commercial and residential uses and the goals such as goal G10.3 to enable residents to reach healthcare and action 10.3 to deploy clinics in the north and south valleys. Looking at those, again, goals and actions. We're looking at the Miller criteria. When addressing the sufficient change of conditions, making the zone change reasonably necessary to protect the public interest, the zone change is appropriate as the rise in population in this area is the change of condition. The US Census data shows that Vado population in 2010 was 2,544. Today in 2024, population stands at 3,300 individuals. That's an increase of 842 people, which is basically around about 25% increase in that area. Where evidence of a change or a mistake is adduced, there is no reciprocal right to a zone change or zoning, nor is there a threshold and evidentiary standard, which when met compels rezoning. The failure to change this zone change will still allow the owner to build a residence, as per allow the D2L zone, which is the medium density high zone. Health service is not permitted within the D2L zone. That's why the client and applicant is requesting the zone change. So they can still build a residence there if without the zone change, but they want to do the La Clinica, so therefore they're going for the zone change. The county as the applicant has the burden of overcoming the presumption that the current zoning district designation is the most appropriate. That's not applicable here. And then the zone change that requires major and unprogrammed capital expenditure by this county may be. In the county, the proposed zone change does not require capital expenditures by the county. Development costs will be borne by the developer. This zone change, the request for the zone change is not solely based on the location of the major thoroughfare on the area. The center has considered the following factors. A, the travel distance to other healthcare providers and private practices for the community residents, and B, the feasibility of the land size to develop the adequate health venture. And C, the location of the Cerro Community Center that will serve as a major community partner in the endeavor. strip zoning is not proposed for this development. And then spot zoning. Spot zoning first is prohibited, and factors to be considered are the disharmony with the surrounding area. The area does have institutional use across the street that's close by, as well as the size of the area to be rezoned is going to be 1 acre parcel. It's combined for the next phase. As of right now, it's 2 half-acre parcels. Part of the conditions is that we are asking her to combine those lots. And the benefit of this rezoning to the community or the owner of the parcel, the zone change is not a spot zone. The Del Cerro Community Center, a county-owned community center, has the zone classification of institutional. Also, the size of both areas to be rezoned and developed, including the aesthetic of the building to be redeveloped, will be designed to fit the context of the surrounding area in a harmonious fashion. More importantly, the rezoning will be creating a healthcare services for Vado, Mesquite, and surrounding communities. Truly a health benefit for the community by providing basic and preventable health care to an underserved area. Our findings. The property is out of any incorporated municipal zoning authority, and is within the Doña County Planning and Zoning Commission jurisdiction to review this case. The request of the application is consistent with the UDC and the general notices of the public hearing for a zone change, and the zone change request for a C2 does satisfy decisional criteria for a zone change. It also is stated that it's appropriate and reasonably necessary to protect the public interest with providing healthcare options, and there are sufficient change in conditions, with 60% reporting no transportation being an issue, as there's been an increase in population in that area. And 4, the zone change to a C2 district would not be considered a spot zone. There are other non-residential uses in the corner of La Fe and Stern, such as the La Finca Meat Market. Across La Fe is Vados del Cerro Community Center, which covers about plus or minus 7 acres of playfields, parking area, and building facilities. North of the project site is zone mixed use, also medium industrial, and there are surrounding dairies and farms north of the property. The zone change will not be in significant conflict with the comp plan or other adopted approved county plans. And the goals and actions that support that are Goal G 10.3 and Action A 10.3. So based off of the facts, of the findings of fact and staff analysis and agency comments, the staff recommends approval with conditions for the case Z 24016, the zone change, on 2 half-acre parcels from a D2L to a C2 zoning in order to develop La Clínica de Familia. And those conditions are, 1, after the zone change, if the zone change is approved, the applicant must submit a replat to combine lots. And 2, community development staff recommends that they vacate the 40-foot drainage easement between lots 15 and 16. That concludes my presentations, commissioners. And the applicant and the owner are here today. I'm going to put it on the concept plan so we can discuss from that and kind of pull from that.
Thank you for your presentation. Commissioners, do you have any questions of staff?
Just one question.
Go ahead.
The vacate the drainage, are you going to be putting a drainage someplace else? Is that what I heard you say?
That's going to be the next discussion that they're going to have with the flood agency. They want to sit down with the flood agency to figure out what those options are. At this point, they can maybe put a bridge over it or channel it. It's a few different options at this point, and it's more we have to figure out what the flow is. The flow's coming from up north and see what properties it's affecting. But at this point, once they figure out what that next step is, they'd of course have to figure out costs and if it's going to be worth it. But at this point, this is the concept plan that they'll be moving forward with. Now they'll be moving with the drainage master plan with this.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Zernick, any questions?
No, Mel.
Okay. On the replat, does it have to come before us again or not? Albert?
Chair, no, I mean, it's just a lot line adjustment. It will be an administrative approval that still has to be reviewed by county agencies. So flood, county engineering, county fire marshal will be one of our reviewing agencies. But it wouldn't come back to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay. Because on the agency reviews, there was quite a few points that have to be taken into consideration. So basically, vacating the drainage easement would be in the replat, right?
It'll be part, yes, sure, it'll be part of the replat process. When you look at page 9 of 71 in your packet, I think the County Flood Commission, they had some recommendations, but basically, if they're gonna be vacating that easement, they have to provide a technical analysis from an engineer, basically stating, hey, you know, what are you guys doing? You know, that's not gonna impede, you know, existing flows going through the property. So, and like Chris said, I mean, this is just a conceptual. You know, the applicant is aware of, you know, the easement that's there, you know, I'm sure they have, you know, engineers on staff that are already looking at options, you know, I mean, this is just a conceptual. There's nothing to say that, you know, they might separate the buildings, you know, now instead of one building being in the middle of that easement, now they can probably place the buildings outside of that easement. When somebody develops the property, you know, you're basically just in charge of retaining water that's created by any impervious areas that you're creating. But existing flows still have to remain, and all that has to be, you know, all that has to pass through the property. But for parking areas and for buildings, you know, you have to create your own ponding areas. So they'll have to address that during the, you know, the building permitting stage. So there's a couple of options, you know. I know we're recommending a replat on this because of the proposed layout. So it all depends on what the applicant comes back with, you know, if they want to change the plan that's being presented, or if they want to keep it, then they'll have to remove that easement.
Okay. I had another question regarding on the for water. Who's going to be supplying water for that area? Who's supplying water?
It's going to be a Lower Rio Grande.
Okay. All right. Any further questions? Dr. Zerniak, any questions?
No, thank you, Mel.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Is the applicant here, present? Okay. Please step forward. We're going to ask you to be sworn in.
Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
Virgil Medina.
Can you get closer to the mic?
Yeah.
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give today is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
And before you begin, I really compliment you on the spirit of the community. I always base that, and the reason being is this. These facilities are really needed, okay? And I applaud for the, you know, the signatures and the time that you took to actually disseminate that information to the general public in that area. It not only affects Del Cerro, it's Chamberino, La Union, San Miguel, all of that, right? So give us your presentation. Thank you so much for submitting this application. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Commission. My name is Virgil Medina. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for La Clínica de Familia. I just want to do a quick overview of some of the services that we provide and just a brief history of who we are. So we are a designated federally qualified health center in Doña County, funded by HRSA, or Health Service Administration. It is a federal entity. We offer affordable, accessible, quality primary care, behavioral health and dental services, and many other supportive services. We are the largest safety net provider in Doña County. In 2023, per our UDS data, we served approximately 33,000 residents in Doña County, which equates to about 255,000 annual visits, right? So both across all of our service lines. We are located primarily in underserved and medically underserved health professional shortage areas. That is the goal and intent of federally qualified health centers, is to be able to provide those services to underserved and underinsured areas within our county. Health center sites in Las Cruces, in San Miguel, Anthony, Sunland Park, and in Chaparral, and hopefully Vado in the very near future. La Clínica de Familia is also designated as the behavioral health provider for specialty behavioral health services, targeting those with serious mental health needs. One of the things that we have incorporated within our services is approximately 17 different behavioral health specialty services, and those services would also follow the plan to provide medical and behavioral health services in that Vado Mesquite area as well. We also operate 7 school-based sites in Doña County, providing primary care, behavioral health services, and we're also linked via telehealth to 8 additional elementary schools and middle schools. By next year, we should be providing services to an additional 10 schools by next year, and the intent there is primarily around providing access to care for behavioral health services in some of our youth at all of these schools, and specifically targeting some of the underserved and underutilized areas within our community. There is a need for affordable health care as indicated by the petition. We've worked with several community groups probably for the last 6 years in that area, and we finally felt as an organization the time was right to be able to go into that community. As per the UDS federal report, there is approximately 1,500 low-income residents in the Mesquite area and about 1,900 low-income residents in the Vado area. These individuals are not connected to health centers currently. Our request supports the Doña County Comprehensive Plan 2024 and enabling residents to reach healthcare goals specific in 10-3 and deploying more clinics in the South and North Valley, and that is indicated there, Action 10-3 as well. We will work with Alvida's architect. We are currently working with them with a project in the Chaparral area. We are expanding our dental facility out in the Chaparral area as well, building a new unit out there. So they'll work with us on this project also to develop and replat the subdivision, combining both plots. The replat will also address the drainage easement running between both lots. The drawing that you guys saw is conceptual, so it gives us different options as to how we position that building. It may be that it stays the way it is, depending on the cost associated with that easement, or we move it to one lot or the other, but we can definitely address that. We'll also analyze the agency review and will ensure agency concerns are addressed in the replat as well. And we plan to communicate with the Flood Commission and other agency staff members to address the easement as well. With that, I stand for any questions that you all may have specific to this project.
Any questions? Dr. Zerniak?
No, Mel, thank you.
Okay. This is how far back I go. The Medina family, Rito Medina, way back, and I'm sure people here in the audience know that, were the first initiators of Clínica de la Familia in San Miguel,
Yes, sir.
including Rose Garcia.
Yes.
So basing it on that, this is, has a lot of history behind it. Any questions? The question I have is this. There was a lot of points that were made by the different agencies. You did state that you would be in full compliance, right? As to whatever they asked you to do.
That is correct, sir.
And for us, our concern is the safety and general welfare of the public as well. Traffic control, ingress and egress to the property, and full compliance. So you're willing to comply with everything that they will ask you to do. Is that
Yes, sir.
correct?
We do.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commission, for your time.
I have a chair for the gentleman, I mean, a question for the.
Please step forward.
You mentioned the other sites you have
Yes, sir.
in the county. Approximately how many, I guess you call them patients, does one of these serve, the average ones? I'm just looking at the potential size of this.
Yeah.
And the numbers you're talking about, maybe 3,500 low-income people in the area. So what's your numbers on some of these other places?
It depends on the community size as well. We can serve, anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 patients in any one of our clinics.
Okay.
That number grows because of our service lines associated with the services that we provide. The great thing about community health centers is we like to think of ourselves of all-inclusive, right? We treat the mind, body, and soul. So we can provide medical, dental, and behavioral health services during the same day, right? Because that's how we're built. Our board of directors have strategically made sure that we have the ability to provide all those services at all of our clinic sites. This one would be no different. We would have the ability to provide medical, behavioral health, the ability to refer for dental if necessary, and the community of Vado Mesquite would be able to take advantage of all those areas. So it just depends on the site. This particular site, we're anticipating probably about 10 professional staff that would be housed out of this facility.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Anybody in favor or opposed to this case? Everybody sign in?
I didn't have anybody for this case. Nobody signed up with me, but they might want to speak.
Okay. Please step forward to the mic so we can hear you.
Good morning.
We're going to swear you in.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is America Terrazas, and I reside in Vado del Cerro, New Mexico.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give today is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Terrazas, before you begin, you addressed this letter or these signatures for the county, Board of County Commissioners, and I'd like to forward this to the Board of County Commissioners, if you don't mind.
No,
All right, okay, thank you. Okay, proceed.
The reason that I'm here today because I did get the letter because del Cerro Nuevos Horizontes, in care of America Terrazas, myself, we have a community garden and park adjacent from and the proposed clinic on the other side, on the back side of the area. And 5 years ago, I wrote a letter to Mr. Vigil asking for help to get services in our area. I, myself, my husband and I, we lost a son to mental health. And that I went to Mary Kay Pavin and I asked her that we needed services in our area. And she referred me to Mr. Vigil. And today, 5 years later, comes this, which is a blessing, because since that day, we have lost other residents in our area because of the lack of services. And in the letter, I wrote him, you know, the losses that we have had. Last year, we had 2 teenagers lose their lives. My son, before then. But we have many stories, and I don't want to burden you with sad stories, but that's lives that can be saved. And that's why I wrote the letter, and today I went again back then, I got over 50 signatures from the community. And he has that letter. And today, I went again into the community to see if they're still interested, and of course they are. And they say, we the residents of Vado del Cerro and surrounding communities are on support of health services coming to our area. We support and appreciate efforts from Clínica de la Familia. We ask for your support to help make these services become a reality. Services much needed for over 4,000 residents. And it's also in Spanish. And I attached the signatures. And you can see that myself and the residents of Vado del Cerro, Mesquite, we are in favor of this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Commissioner, any questions of Ms. Terrazas? No? And could you get her a drink of water, bottle of water maybe? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Eileen?
Good morning. Joaquin Terrazas? He's okay? Okay.
Okay,
No further comments.
that's it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Commissioner, is there any comments?
I'm good, Mel, thank you.
All right. All right. Anybody opposed to this case? All right, I'm going to close it to the gallery now. Commissioners, the chair entertains a motion.
I'll move based on findings of fact and staff analysis, agency comments. I'll move conditional approval of case Z24-016, zone change on 2 half-acre parcels. Conditions being after the zone change, the applicant must submit a replat to combine the lots, and community development staff recommends vacating the 40-foot drainage easement between lots 15 and 16.
I'll second that.
Okay. Does everybody understand the motion? Any discussion on the motion?
Dan seconded it. I moved it, Dan seconded it, right?
Right. We have a second on the floor, right? Okay. Any discussion on the motion? No discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Zarges?
Yes.
Commissioner Lear?
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher?
Yes.
Vice Chair Zerniak?
Yes,
Chair Acosta?
Yes.
Thank you.
And if you have any questions down the line, please concur with staff, okay? Thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you. All right. Case number Z24-017, submitted by Joseph Bayer. Okay. And you represent Riverside Investments LLC? All right. Okay. All right, okay. We'll take a slight pause. You need to go? You need to get up and walk? Okay, we're back in session again. Albert, you ready for case number Z 24-17, presented by
Yes.
Joseph Bayer?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Albert Casillas, 845 North Motel Boulevard.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give today is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. For our second case today, it's going to be another zone change request. The applicant's going to be Mr. Josh Bayer, representing Riverwalk Investments LLC. This property is located just up the road here on West Picacho Avenue, 3400. Existing zoning, it's actually D2, it's not D2L, it's a D2, a medium-density residential zone. And they're requesting to change the zoning on 15.47 acres from that D2 to a C2, which is community commercial. And this is in order to expand on future commercial uses such as an auction yard. And it's to include warehousing, office use, and storage. This is a location map, so just as a point of reference, we're probably somewhere in this area right here. This is the county building. And then just up the road on West Picacho, you'll have the subject parcel. So this is the 15 acres. Riverwalk Investments, they also own this parcel right here. And about 2 years ago, we had a zone change approved on there from C2 to C3. Well, from residential to commercial, which included a C2 and a C3 designation. And if you drive out there right now, you'll see the throat punch automotive, and that's for ATV repairs and sales. So you'll see that building up, already up and running. You have the river here to the west of it, and everything here in gray is basically city limits. And this is just an old aerial photo, but right now the 15 acres it is vacant. It is a vacant parcel. And when we look at the zoning map, we already see that the about 6-7 acres in the front, it's already zoned C2 and C3. But this is the area that's in question today, right here. Like I said before, I mean, the property was zoned ER4M prior to 2017, so it was residential. And then after the UDC got adopted, it got that D2 designation. And before I go into the history, I'm going to talk a little bit about this front portion because both properties are tied together. And it kind of set up the whole thing of why the zoning is like it is today. But back in 2008, there was an effort to rezone that front portion of the property from ER4M to EC2. It got approved, but it was just never built out. And then it kind of just went back and forth between commercial and residential because later on in 2017, they wanted to go back from that C2 to a D2, and that was to build out a mobile home park subdivision. And then of course that got approved, but then sewer was never extended out into the area, so that kind of killed the whole deal. And then, of course, when Josh Bayer came in 2022, well, they went back from residential to commercial, and he got that approved under case number Z22006, and he got that C2 and C3 zoning designation for the adjacent parcel. So that's kind of like the history involving those two parcels, but the 15 acres in question, it pretty much remained, residential. The idea back then was to have the front portion zoned commercial and then the back be developed as a residential subdivision. But the fact that sewer was never extended, like I said, kind of killed the whole residential portion of this. So now the applicant's here today to basically, make the whole property commercial. Like I said it before, it is to go from a D2 to a C2 to expand on other commercial uses, including an auction yard. It's kind of like a conceptual plan that the applicant is showing right now. When you look at the conceptual, you'll see the existing business right here, and then proposed additional structures. He's also planning on coming back and subdividing, the property to create different lots. This is the existing entrance right here. And so he's going to be proposing a separate entrance a little bit up the road. And of course, all that has to be approved by New Mexico DOT. As it is right now, there's no access being proposed off of Hoskins Road. A couple years ago, when they were still discussing the residential option, I know there was a plan of creating some kind of access onto Burke Road, crossing the EBID ditch that's there, but that's not being proposed today. Right now, he's basically just proposing a loop going through both properties and access points being off of Picacho Avenue. And you kind of have an idea of what the zoning is right now. I mean, this is the zone change that got approved back in, about 2 years ago for C2 and C3. And then this is the portion behind those properties that are being proposed to go to a C2 designation. And then just, a couple of aerials, like I said, I mean, everything here in the gray is the city of Las Cruces. Here's a view of the subject parcel. So that's the existing throat punch repair shop right here. They do have an area that's fenced in the back for RV storage, which is allowed by the zoning that they have right now. And so everything behind that, so that's the subject parcel back here. Everything in the front's already zoned commercial. So now they're just rezoning the rear portion of the parcel. Here we're looking west on Picacho, and this is the entrance to Hoskins Lane. And that's the existing road for Hoskins. Throat punch, so this is their repair shop and sales office. And this is the current entrance into the ATV shop right here. Parking area. And just another view of the subject parcel. And then this is just that intersection of Picacho and Burke. Surrounding businesses, right across the street, you have the Sun City plumbing building, and then a couple more offices here. I think this is an insurance office. So when looking at the zone change requirements, we got to look at section 35203, which talks about the decisional criteria for zone changes. Those were the properties that were notified. 18 letters were sent out. There was an email that staff received of concern, and that's included in your packet. So when we look at section D1, the applicant, they're not proposing any additional homes. There's not an effect on population and no impact to demographics. Access to the property will be from West Picacho Avenue and will require an approved New Mexico driveway permit. Hands and Auctions is an online auction business, which is one of the proposed users to go into the property if the zone change is approved. And on their narrative, they're stating that the business will have 2 employees located on site on a daily basis with up to 5 employees. Okay. Oh, sorry. And then So basically, it's an online auction business. The facility is just mostly going to be used for storage of equipment. And then, there's going to be pickups at the property. AM and PM peak trips per day are estimated at 10 with 5 employees on site. So the zone change will allow the vacant property to be used in a manner consistent with other surrounding commercial properties. And when you drive up, that area of Picacho, you'll see the existing business that's there, which is the repair shop for ATVs. You'll see the new building for Sun City Plumbing and Heating. There's Allied Van Lines Moving Company, Lucchini's Towings, right across the river. And also you have the Mesilla Valley Transportation business back there too. The Doña Mutual Domestic will provide water, and sewer will be provided by a septic tank approved by NMED. We do believe that there is sufficient infrastructure capacity for the proposed use. No evidence of any environmental or historical areas of historical significance was submitted or found. The impacts, like I said before, there are existing commercial uses within the area of the proposed zone change. There will not be any significant impact on surrounding properties since other areas along West Picacho Avenue are already commercial. And an applicant will implement best management practices that are identified, noted, and included in reviews and conditions required for the zone change and during the building permitting process. So we do believe that the applicant meets section D1. We don't believe that it's in conflict with the comprehensive plan. The zone change complements the other, existing surrounding commercial and industrial uses, and it upholds goals such as G2.2 and G6.7, which is to support regional small-scale businesses. When it comes to a change of condition, we do believe that the zone change is appropriate, as there have been multiple zone changes and SUPs approved in the area. Most recently, the applicant got the approval, to rezone that whole front portion, those 7 acres from residential to commercial, and it gave them a C2 and a C3 zoning designation. In previous proposals for residential development, like the Riverwalk States, back then, that change in condition was that, that there was going to be a sewer lift station installed, and that never occurred. So that pretty much eliminated any more higher density, residential development. And just, I just did a screenshot of my, my GIS screen, basically showing, other properties that received the zone changes or SUPs in the past from residential to commercial. We don't think it's a spot zone either. It's the proposed request is in harmony with surrounding areas of the subject property and blends in with the City of Las Cruces zoning of C2C, which is commercial. They got some industrial zoning as well right across the street. And, of course, the existing C2 and C3 designations that are out there. The size of the development is appropriate for the area, and there will be a benefit to the community by increasing the availability of commercial-related services. And just a screenshot of the zoning map from the City of Las Cruces. So right across, that the existing business that's there, there's a little strip there that's actually commercial. When the applicant submitted the building permit for their ATV repair shop, they had to submit to us and to the City of Las Cruces, just because the property was, was between both jurisdictions. And then across the street, of course, you have the Sun City Plumbing business and the other commercial offices, and there's manufacturing zoning and commercial zoning. So our staff findings they're included in your packet as well, but we do believe that the zone change request to a C2 satisfies the decisional criteria as it is appropriate and reasonably necessary to protect the public interest, and there is a sufficient change of conditions that have occurred in the area. We don't believe the request, we don't believe it's going to be a spot zone, and we do believe that it's not in significant conflict with the comprehensive plan. So our recommendation today is to recommend approval for case number Z24017. which is a zone change on the 15.47 acres to go from the D2 to a C2 designation. And with that said, we do stand for questions. The applicant is here today as well to give to provide a statement. And I believe there's members of the public here as well that wish to speak on, in regards to the case.
That concludes your presentation, Albert.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Zerniak, any questions of staff?
No, Mel, thank you.
All right. I have questions for you, Albert. The on-site systems for sewer, and I'm sure the applicant will address that issue. One is the static water line for close to the river. And I'm sure he'll be able to explain, Mr. Bay will be able to explain the type of systems that they're going to be available. And the question I have is, where is the legal limits of the city of Las Cruces to the east of there, of that?
I believe that's Roadrunner right here. That's Roadrunner Lane. So you have Burke Road right here. So between Burke and Roadrunner, you have all that area that's kind of like a mixed use, that's residential and there's some businesses there. But to the east, it would be Roadrunner.
Okay, all right. Commissioners, any questions of staff?
Yeah, I have a question for Albert. Currently, the property that's there, that's on Picacho is Zone C3 and has been. It was recent. That's where the new business went in. I guess I'm curious as to why is it to be? Why are they trying to change it to C2 rather than C3 and just extend that?
So just to clarify, Commissioner Lear, so that's the subject parcel right now.
Yes.
And that's the zoning designation that was approved 2 years ago. Let me go to the survey here real quick, and we'll have a better picture of the request. But in 2002, this portion got the C3 designation, and then this portion here, the rest of it got the C2 designation. The zoning map is just, I guess it's too zoom out and only the C3 label comes up.
Okay.
But it's actually, there's like 1 acre of C3, and then the rest is C2.
Okay.
So this is a property line. So this right here is the subject parcel, which is currently zone D2, and they're requesting the C2.
Okay.
Basically just to extend C2 all the way to the rest of the 15 acres.
All right, thank you.
Well, Janine, don't leave yet, Albert. Marty Pillar used to be an engineer, right? He's, okay, so that was during the ETZ era, right?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Dr. Zerniak, any other questions of staff?
Nope, I'm good.
All right, thank you, Albert. Anybody in the gallery that's for or opposing this case, have you signed in to testify on behalf?
Nobody has signed in, Commissioner.
Nobody?
No, sir.
All right, okay. Mr. Bay, are you present? Please step forward. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Close enough. We're going to swear you in, Mr. Bayer.
Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good morning, Josh Beyer, Las Cruces, New Mexico.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give today is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
I have a question before you begin.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned Hanson Auction, right?
Correct.
Are you affiliated with the Hanson Auctions in El Paso?
So I'm not affiliated with them. They're actually a potential buyer of the property, and that's why we're looking to rezone the rest to the C2. And they're not an auction yard, they're an online auction company. So what they're looking to do if they purchase a property, a strip of property from me, is build an office and warehouse. Majority of their business is all online auctions, so the only thing that would be taking place there would be their few employees that do their itemizing and inventory of their auction items, and then majority of their stuff gets shipped out or possibly sometimes people come to pick it up, but it wouldn't be something that would be like on-site auctions. So it wouldn't affect the area as far as a lot of traffic and people coming in and out, just their few employees that they have there on a normal basis.
All right. And there's no affiliation with the auction yards in Lee, Chavez, and Eddy counties?
No, they're actually based out of Wisconsin. They have several online auction businesses that are back east, and this is the only one that's out here in the Southwest.
And I was going with that because of the heavy equipment that sometimes they auction.
Right, right.
Okay,
Yeah,
but-
and as far as storage goes, I mean, the proposed building is to store items indoors, but of course, they will have a fenced-in lot if they decide to purchase the property. At the point right now, I'm just trying to rezone my property, just so for future use, and there's a potential buyer lined up for a piece of it, but not all of it.
Okay, go ahead, proceed.
So if you guys have any other questions, I mean, I'm willing to answer anything. Albert's helped me out quite a bit. Everything went really smooth on the process whenever like he mentioned in 2022, I came in and had that front section rezoned. I think you had asked why part of it was C3. The section where I actually built my building and business, we do sales, so I had to be zoned as C3. So that's why we did that one piece, but we did C2 for the rest because we have plans to do more commercial buildings. Initially, when we bought the property, we had planned on putting, subdividing and doing quite a few commercial buildings in there. At the end of the day, I think it's going to be a better use and cause less traffic by selling 8 acres of that to Hanson Auctions. If it all works out, it'll induce less traffic because we're putting less buildings in. And he had also mentioned that down Burke Road, there is an easement across the BID drainage ditch there. And at this time, we don't have any plans to do any bridge work there to make access to the back of the property. That'll be future use, which I have been in contact with the Elephant Butte Irrigation District engineer. And he and I have discussed some options for possibly putting a bridge across that in the future, but that's distant future for sure.
Well, the other question was also on the sewer. I'm sure you'll be in compliance with NMED on, is it going to be above ground?
It
or
is
it
above
gonna-
grade, yes, sir. We had to do the same at my existing property. So be that the water table is pretty high there, we had to, Johnny Septic came in and assessed the situation with NMED, and we raised everything up higher to get it above grade. So everything is set up at if you happen to pass by the building, you'll notice the building itself is up high as well, and we moved the septic up the same height as the building just to keep it above, to meet all the restrictions.
And my concern would be, there's water wells that are still being serviced in private residence down the way, so we have to make sure that we don't contaminate the water
Of
table.
course, yeah, I've tried my best to go and meet all of our neighbors along the road there on Hoskins Lane because they're our closest neighbors, and we try to be, I'm born and raised in Las Cruces, so to me, it's really important, be part of the community, and we have extended our greeting style of people there, as well as going out and making sure that every morning when we get there, being it's a busy road, there's always a little bit of trash that gets thrown out on our property, or right there by the river, there's a lot of trash that blows over from the weekend. So the first thing we do on Monday morning is go walk the whole property right there by the road just to clean up. So we want to keep everybody, we obviously want to keep my business looking nice and our property, but also take care of the neighbors around us as well.
So you did state that most of the auction's going to be online, right? Most of it?
That's correct, yes, sir. To my knowledge, majority of their business, well, all the auction is all online. They don't, and then as far as traffic in and out would mostly be their employees.
All right, okay.
I have a question. We did get a letter in opposition from a Ms. Fox who lives in that area. And one of her primary concerns is lighting and stuff in the environment. Can you guys, you're going to be storing things there.
Correct.
I'm just concerned about, there's lighting and stuff available that mitigates the environmental damages that, so that people who live in an area can still see the stars and things.
That's correct.
And I don't want to make it a condition of this, but I'd just like to point out that I would hope that you people would consider that when you're doing this.
Right, yeah, so, in working with Sean and Sean Vick here, when we did our building, I mean, we're well aware that there's a Night Sky Act, so there will be shaded in any lighting. Of course, that building would be closer to the residents than my current building, so we would definitely make sure that we meet all the guidelines. I mean, we have to in order to pass to get permitted anyways. But everything in the plans with Marty Pillar, who he had mentioned before, also is very familiar with the property, will be doing the engineering work for me. We have a close relationship, and he knows the property well, so he knows all the codes as well. So when it comes to the lighting package and electrical. It'll all make sure that the outdoor lighting has the shades on it to properly, keep it down to a 90-degree angle.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Dr. Zerniak, any questions?
No, Mel.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your
Thank you all. Appreciate
presentation.
it.
No, I have a question for you.
Okay,
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
I'm looking at the site plan here, and it looks like any structures that would be built would be fairly close to Picacho.
For the future use, yeah, that was something that Marty and myself sat down just to kind of come up with some ideas. I mean, obviously, I own the property all the way to the back that backs up to the Lyles Farms there. So of course, in the, distant future, we'd like to do some buildings out back there as well to utilize the property. But for the time being, the only thing that we have in the works would be the Hanson auction building that if zoning goes through properly and we can move forward with that, that would be the one that would be up close to Picacho.
Okay, so the reason that you're requesting this, all the property, rather than just the piece right up front, okay, is that you see the possibility of more commercial development on the back side of this property?
Yeah, and it may be hard to tell in there. I can't read it from here, but Hanson is looking at purchasing, what we've looked at is a long strip that goes all the way down. So it actually goes into that back section as well for like a fenced-in area. So that's the reason we were wanting to go ahead and get it, just do it all at one time and get that back section rezoned, because a piece of the property they're looking at purchasing, including the land right there by Picacho, but it does extend into the area that's not zone C2 right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions?
well, we're always concerned about super duper heavy equipment, and you have enough property there to accommodate that, and so we don't want to make it look like a salvage yard.
Neither do I, sir. I run my business there, and we try and operate it like I was mentioning, or we try to do a very good job of keeping the area very clean. I take a lot of pride in being born and raised in Las Cruces and being from this county, so I've always been excited to have my own property, my own building, and I try and show that on a daily basis there. If you drive by, everything is always very clean.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
All right, commissioners. I will entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion. Based on findings of fact, staff analysis, and agency comments, I move that we approve case number Z24-017, a zone change on a 15.47 acre parcel from D2L to C2 in order to expand for future commercial use.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and it's been seconded. Any discussion on the motion, Commissioners? Commissioner Zerniak?
No.
All right. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Zargis,
Yes.
Commissioner Lear,
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher,
Yes.
Vice Chair Zerniak,
Yes.
Chair Acosta.
Yes. Okay. And if you have, Mr. Bay, if you have any questions down the line, please concur with staff, okay? Thank you so much. All right. Let's see. Albert, I'm sorry. We're in item number C.
Yes,
Amendment number 6 to the Unified Development Code.
okay,
Okay.
yes.
And
This
and
is
Dr.
the-
Zerniak, whenever you have a question, just go ahead and jump in, all right?
Okay.
Okay, we're going to start with looking at the UDC and the amendments that we've made changes to. The portions that are in yellow are changes from staff and from the P&Z Commission and DRC. Whatever they recommended are in yellow. The underlined is changes that we did do on the amendments. So right now, what we're looking at is the land use classification matrix, zoning districts. And we took all of the ag off. We're not going to have any of that in the UDC. So we added
We've been getting getting cases where people want to build storage on properties just for storage and not have a primary use like residential or commercial or industrial. So we added this in there for agricultural, and we added the packaging and warehousing of off-site products may be permitted based on the scale, intensity, and location of the existing operations. And then we added, and these are the definitions that we have in the UDC, we're just adding to them. And then we added to agriculture processing facility, processing of off-site products may be permitted based on the scale, intensity, and location of the existing operation. Any comments on that?
I have a question.
Yes.
So where you say processing of offsite products may be permitted based on scale, intensity, and location of the existing operation.
Yes.
You say an SUP is required if not allowed by right. So where would it be allowed by right?
On farm operations, wherever there's farming, they would do that.
So
It would be allowed by right.
unless somebody decides that it's too intense or the scale is too big or the location of the existing the scale or intensity is too big, then you would require an SUP?
Let's see. Go back up to the. They're all, on a livestock, no.
Dr. Zernick, the reason why we added this phrase was because of your concerns about farms taking in off-site ag products. So that's why we added that phrase specific to the definition as well as to the legend. So big farmers can take in the small farmers' pecans and process them.
So my question, Janine, is that if the scale of the operation is too big, do they have to then go ahead and get an SUP? Is that the idea?
Yes, either too big or too small. I think we were looking in terms of it being rather a small operation surrounded by residential.
So how do you decide when it's too big or too intense? That's my question.
Well, we would look at their proposed site plan specifically. But in order to meet the definition of farming and ranching, I believe you need a minimum of 2 acres per the assessor's office and then our definition.
Okay, the only thing I'm worried about is that if you say it's too big or too intense, isn't that arbitrary? What are the standards for that?
We will note that and work on that in a work session.
Okay, that was my question.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you.
we'll have to go back.
Okay.
Okay.
What's next?
Oh, it doesn't want to go, I don't know what's happening. There's a lot more in here, I don't know what's.
Does,
Okay. Okay, this is where I thought I was going to start, was on the administrative authority and duties. We added to number 2, we put on to receive, hear, and make final determinations to approve with conditions, or deny applications for deviations, modifications, or alternative design to subdivision plats submitted in conjunction with a preliminary plat. Variances and special use permits as prescribed by and subject to the procedures established herein. We just wanted to tighten that up a little bit. The next one is on general public hearings, limitations on rehearing. We felt we needed to make some changes in there. A proposed zone change and special use permit variance and claim of exemption or subdivision application has been denied by the zoning administrator, planning and zoning commission, or other county commissioner, or particular tract of land for a particular purpose cannot again be applied for within 1 year from the date of the denial. So they have to wait a year before they can apply again if it's denied. Zone changes, we added, if a zone change is approved with conditions, it will be designated on the official zoning map by a lowercase c, following the zoning district designation. So going to building permits and mobile home installation permits, we took out and elevation certificates, and we added a building permit may be refused until compliance with all county codes and ordinances are complied, are done. Expiration of land use applications and code violations, we added additionally if property undergoing and land, if the property undergoing an land use application has zoning, code, or building permit violations, the application may be denied until such violations are corrected or abated.
Charlene?
Yes?
Do you really mean denied means that we have to make a determination, don't we? Or the zoning administrator has to say no. Do you mean denied or that it can be delayed or postponed?
It can be
Denied
delayed.
means it's the point is someone took an official action. Is that really what you want?
Yes, we have people coming in and they don't, the case that we just had with Tejas, he had all that stuff on his property and he had to come into compliance before we even came to the P&Z to take that application in. And the flood commission found violations on there too, so they had to work with him, and that, it's what a case like that is what this is for. Because people
listen to the wording though. If it's denied, that means that the planning commission said no. And if that happens, that means they can't come back for a year to reapply.
That's right.
Right?
Yes, that's correct.
So do you really want to say denied, or do you want to say that it can be delayed or postponed, or that a decision won't be made until all code violations are corrected?
That's better language. I agree with you.
And it's a little awkward, but I think there's a better language that can be used there.
Mr. Chair?
I don't think you want to say denied.
Commissioner, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Zerniak, this specific section refers to the zoning administrator, and that's why we also use the word may be denied. We're not specifically saying that it shall be denied, but it may be denied. So we are being pretty cautious, I believe, with our phraseology in this section.
Okay, if you're happy with it, I'll go along, but it just seems, it means that zoning administrator said no, right? That's what denied means, and that means that it either has to go to the commission or to the county commission if they want to appeal that decision. So I think what you want people to do is to come in compliance with the code. That's the point.
Right.
So it seems to me that you might even say that an application for a zone change may not be submitted to a decision maker, to the zoning administrator or planning commission until all code violations have been corrected.
But that opens up a can of worms because people come in and if they're denied, they go ahead and they do what they want to do. So, but if we have an application in and it's pending, we can hold that carrot up for them to comply with what we want.
That's my point. When you say denied, it's over.
Okay.
Right?
maybe placed on hold until such violations are corrected or abated?
I think that's fine, Janine.
Okay, thank you.
Are we ready to move on?
Let me just, I'm listening to what Dr. Cerniak's saying. I'm wondering if, when this is, let's say a case like this was brought to the P and Z Commission, rather than hold a vote and either approve or deny, it, could the commission not vote on it at that time and postpone it for a future time?
I don't know. Janine?
Sure, you could do that, Dan, but the
Yeah.
point is the staff can avoid that. Why bring it to us? They can just say, you know, the commission won't even hear this until all code violations have been corrected.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, I see what
that's
you're saying.
always, yeah, that's always been a problem for me.
Okay.
That introduces a whole complexity, another layer of complexity
Right,
to the whole
right.
process.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, now we're coming down to the land use matrix. And of course, we took all the ag off, 'cause that was confusing to a lot of people. And, okay, for, on residential, we took permitted off of D2 and D2L. And we put on the campground, we have a special use permit on a T2, a T4 conditional, R5, a special use permit for R5, R5L, D1, and D1L. Special use permit in a DM, and the MU is permitted, and C1, C2, C3 is permitted.
So why would we allow a campground in a T4? That's an urbanized area.
It's conditional.
I understand, but it seems to me, you wouldn't even, why would you, to me, you wouldn't put a campground in a T4. It's too developed.
It is, I agree.
And even the R5L and D1L,
Yes,
those are site-built homes. Now,
on
I don't
D1.
think, does it talk, do those talk about density, don't they?
yes. They're 1 acre lot minimums, so D1 and D1L. R5, let's see, and T4, it can go down to 6,000 square foot lot.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I live on a 1 acre lot, and I can't imagine a campground next to me. It's just bizarre. So I'm not sure that you want to allow a campground in a T4, an R5L, or a D1L.
Okay, and R5L is 5 acre lot minimums.
Although, well, that's probably, the density's probably low enough that it's okay there,
Right.
but not in the D1L, and certainly not in a T4. Here's the question. If you would allow a campground in a T4, why wouldn't you allow it in a T3?
Well, going back to the regulations on the campground, they need at least 5 acres to have a campground. And there are some D1 and D1L properties out there that are larger than 5 acres.
But they can be smaller too,
They
right?
can be smaller, yes, but they need a 5 acre lot minimum to have a campground.
So that's my point. You're allowing a large campground to go into an area with site-built homes on small lots with a special use permit. And T4 is urbanized. I don't think you ought to allow it.
Okay. We'll scrap that.
You guys go ahead and talk about it.
Is that okay, Janine? Yeah,
Yeah, I would agree with Dr. Cerniak. I think it doesn't make much sense in a T4 or a D1L. I mean, based on lot sizes, like he said, I live on a 1 acre lot too, and I can't imagine having a 5 acre campground next door.
yeah. That's why they have to get a special use permit.
No, you shouldn't allow it. Just say, no, it's easier.
Just take it out. Well, we had.
Just take it, take it off the matrix. I don't think, why would you give a person that option and make the planning commission have to make a decision that would put all kinds of conditions on them that probably wouldn't work anyway. It just doesn't seem like, from a land use perspective, it doesn't seem appropriate.
Okay. We've had instances where people are coming and they're making campgrounds. They're advertising it on Facebook, and it's hard to, we don't have anything in the UDC that addresses it. That's the reason why we're putting it in here, to address it, so that they have to go for they have to do something to continue if they want to continue with that. We just don't want them doing it out there freely, and that's why we addressed it in the UDC.
And just look at the campground definitions. And it'll substantiate Dr. Zerniak's claim.
Chair, Albert Casillas for the record. And just to echo the comments from Charlene, it is an enforcement issue. I think if we do include it on the matrix, at least when it does become problematic, our code enforcement officers at least have something in the code to point to whenever, if they have to take somebody over to court. It will be on the matrix, it will be in the UDC, the violation that applicant is not complying with. And just to be clear, we're not allowing it by right. I mean, there is a SUP component to this. So if somebody wanted to go in the middle of a neighborhood, they would have to apply for an SUP. People would be notified, and they would have to, potentially go to a public hearing. But there are a lot of vacant, D1L and D1 zoning designations, throughout the county. So, that's the reason we went ahead and added the DS on the D1s and on the R5s and the T2s. I do agree that T4 might be a little, I do agree that might be a little bit too, higher density for it. So, we can strike that one out. But scratching that out of the code, I think it just, we're still with the same problem of addressing campgrounds throughout the county, because there are quite a few out there.
But Albert, isn't it a stronger case for Sean and the enforcement guys to be able to say to someone, you're not allowed to do this? It's not allowed by code, rather than you need a special use permit, or there may be conditions placed on your use. Why go through all that with a property owner and just tell them, you can't do this, it's not allowed, period? That's the strongest case for an enforcement person. It's the difference between a yellow light and a red light, right?
Well, the problem is that we don't have anything to point to when they have to take them to court when they're doing these things. And we tell them there's no provision for it in the UDC. And we go to the court, and sometimes the judge says, well, where does it say it's not allowed? I guess maybe we just have to put it explicitly that campgrounds are not allowed. I don't know.
Well, if it's not, it's clear. If there's no check in the box, that means by definition, it's not allowed. Any place you see a blank on this matrix, that use is not allowed in that zone.
Have you added campground to the definitions?
Yes, I
see
have.
it in here.
Let's go to the definitions.
On the other part. He's in our origin, we don't have it right now. Oh, gosh, more than 4. So, oh my God. That's... Because you can have a primitive campground then.
Yes.
in those
And-
residential
And
areas.
that's what's coming to us, is they're having primitive campgrounds out there. And, building fires, and we're getting complaints from neighbors, and
Where are they located?
they're all over the county. They'll call us and we'll get that notice, and then we'll look it up, and it's out in the middle of nowhere.
But based on that, based on what you're showing, we're going to allow campgrounds in those T4 areas.
No, we're going to strike that. I believe that was what we decided. We're going to
You're gonna
strike that
strike-
in the T4 areas, yes.
Okay.
And we'll also strike it out of D1. I just need a consensus for the R5 zone with the 5-acre minimum. Shall we strike that as well
R5?
to get them out of the residential areas?
I mean, with a 5-acre minimum, that density is low enough. The houses are far enough apart that and a campground at 5 acres would be the same size as a lot. It's probably okay. You can buffer that.
And they would have to apply for a special use permit. Okay.
Yeah, but the D1L, because you can go down to 6,000 square feet, if you have sewer, I don't think that's a good idea.
Okay, so we will strike it from the T4 and D1, D1L.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, Janine, right now, we're making recommendations for adjustments to wordage, and we're not ready to vote on this one yet, right?
I don't believe so. Well, because we
These
do have a
are-
little more work to do on, what section was that one? On the ag, the scale and intensity of the ag.
Yes, the scale and intensity of the act.
So
So we'll get your,
this is just massaging the wordage?
Yes.
yes.
getting
And
into-
actually having a mental, clear definition as to what we're looking at?
That's correct.
Like, I was looking at those 5-acre parcels up in Talavera, right? And then squeezing that down to a 2-acre parcel, right?
No, we're not touching that.
All right,
Okay.
okay.
The next one is recreational parking. We're taking the permitted off of D3. Okay, and then mobile food vending, this is what started the whole amendment, was the food truck wars. And so we have it that in the T2, it's a special use permit, T3, T4. It's permitted in in commercial and industrial. And T5, it's permitted. And mixed use. We had people selling from their homes directly on their lots. And they would sell after hours, and they had long lines. And we got complaints about that. And so then they started to war with each other where they could park. And so we had to put a stop to that. And of course, and they had great big ads in paper, their food showing on Facebook. So we've had to crack down on that. Okay, event center, we've had many requests for concerts, outdoor concerts, or indoor concerts, wedding venues, that kind of stuff. So we put event center in there. And of course, in a T2, it's a special use permit, T3, T4, it's permitted in a T5. And of course, it's permitted in mixed use, I believe, and yes,
Permitted in,
C1, C2, and C3.
you can't do that so we can see the
I
see the
can't,
top line?
no, I can't.
Okay, so you're permitted on the event centers on which ones?
On the mixed use, C1, C2, C3, and it's,
C1, C2, C3?
yes. And the special use permit in T2, T3, T4,
See what,
and permitted in T5.
there's a missing in the center, hold on. Yeah, let's go up to the top again.
Okay, right here.
MU C1, C2, C3, and when you go down there, there's a missing. You have C1 and C3, you've skipped C2.
Oh, okay, I see.
Excuse me, Commissioner, there was a shift in the matrix. The Ps are actually in C1, C2, and C3. Those Ps are, there was just a shift in the matrix and you can't see the line because it's grayed out.
Okay.
And is it event, Sharon, is an event center, a community center be an event center?
Yes, that would be institutional if it's with the county, if it's a government-owned, but yes. But we're getting questions for private events that they want to sell or have an event there.
What about a Catholic event center? They have these halls, they used to? Is that an event center as well?
Yes, it would be part of the church, of the religious institution.
So you have that under T5 as well, then?
Yes, it's on T5 also.
That is hard without seeing the top.
Yeah, we had trouble with the matrix to bring it into Word and having to correct it, and so it's been a
I
bear.
understand.
Okay, and then institutional use such as library and educational cultural centers, we put it permitted in a mixed use also. And then going down to agriculture. So here's where that first discussion that we had, agricultural packaging and warehousing, it's permitted in T2, permitted in R5, R5L, D1L, and C3. That's for processing. Packaging and warehousing is permitted in T2, R5, R5L, D1, and D1L. And also, it was permitted originally in C2, C3, and industrial zones.
Wouldn't they need a special use permit for the D1 and D1L? I mean, that could be fairly dense housing.
Yes,
So why wouldn't you require a special use permit?
yes, we will change it to a special use permit
Okay.
and just leave it in T2 that it's permitted.
You don't have the C1 permitted in that agricultural.
No,
package.
we don't. It's only permitted in C3. I don't know if we want to add C2 and
C2 and C3, commercial and regional, not neighbor.
Chair, let me just do a point of clarification. When you look at the, on the, I guess on the column, right under agriculture, you see the two little asterisk signs on there. When you go back to like the beginning of the matrix, it basically says that if there's two asterisks there, it's just for on-site operations. We're not saying that if somebody just owns a vacant piece of D1 or D1L property, that you can go ahead and start a packaging and warehousing building. You need to have on-site farm operations already in existence. That's why we're putting the P on there, because we're basically saying if you have 100 acres of pecan orchards, you should be able to build a facility that's going to support that business without having to go through some kind of zone change or public hearing, because it's for on-site operations only.
Okay.
Yes, Commissioner?
Go ahead.
And I was going to
I
say,
was just going to say, go ahead, Albert.
and just to finish real quick, if the property is vacant, then I believe, that's the reason why they were trying to add, that whole little sentence about requiring a special use permit if it's not going to be if you don't have anything there, if it's just a vacant piece of land, then you would have to go through either a zone change or a special use permit.
Okay.
So the two asterisks is basically just saying this is for your current existing, farming operations. If you do have a farming operation going on, then these are the uses that are allowed by right to support your existing business.
Okay.
So going down to farming and ranching, we took all the A's off and put P's, all across the board. So that, that can be done on any property. Grain storage has asterisks also, and it's permitted in a T2. I believe it's a T5.
So Charlene, we're going to allow farming and ranching operations in a T5, which would be right in the middle of San Miguel or La Union.
Well, we on the farming and ranching, we added Ps all across the board to address farming as a right. That's a right that anybody can have for farming and ranching. So that comes up a lot, and so we just put Ps all across the board. You know, if they have a community garden or have their little garden in their house, their home, that's why we have it on there. Because that people get really emotional and upset with their farming and ranching. It's a right that they feel that they have here in the Mesilla Valley. So,
But isn't farming and ranching a different definition than gardening?
oh yes, of course, the gardening. Yes, you're right.
So I'm trying to understand why you would allow farming and ranching operations right in the middle of San Miguel.
I don't know. Maybe I could get help from my fellow planners.
Chair, Commissioner Zerniak, I mean, the whole principle of this is to get away from having, tying, how a property is being assessed, trying to get away from that, having an assessment dictate, what your zoning should be.
Right.
I haven't, driven through San Miguel or La Mesa recently, but I'm sure people have like small little orchards there. I'm sure people have, they're planting, corn or chili or whatever, because it's their, their right to do it. So previous to this proposed amendment, we basically had A's all across the board. If somebody had an acre out there and, then they've been farming it, for forever, they should still be able to continue to, to do that. Or even if it's a vacant 1 acre lot, and they wanted to farm that, we don't see why, they shouldn't be able to do it. But if it's, if it's a commission's, perspective that, T5 or T4 might not be the, the best, spot for somebody to start, farming their 1 acre lot, then, we're open to suggestions as well. But before that, with that A designation, if somebody had been farming, that piece of property for a year, they were able to do it.
I'm okay with the farming, but the ranching, I mean, some of these, we have restrictions on how many animals we can have on certain size lots. So how does that, it's kind of like we're conflicting.
Yeah, well, Commissioner Fisher, we do have a section that regulates, large animals, small or very small animals. And a lot of it has to do with the zoning. A lot of it has to do with the lot size as well. So there are other parameters that people have to follow. Just because, we say that farming and ranching is allowed in a T5, if you have half an acre, you're not going to be able to have a horse on it. You need at least a minimum of 3/4 of an acre to have a large animal on there. So there are other sections that have parameters for animals.
So, aren't those two in conflict? I mean, if you're saying that ranching is allowed, and then all of a sudden you say, oh, wait a minute, no, it's not allowed, that now you have two sections that are in conflict with one another.
I don't think they're in conflict, but I mean, it's a whole separate section that dictates, the density of the number of animals. I mean, if you're in a T2 zone, you have 100 acres, then yeah, I mean, you can have, as many animals as, you're allowed to have based on that acreage. But I mean, I think those parameters work for smaller lots. And then in our code, there's language in there that says, the strictest section of the code, it's what, it's what applies, if there is a conflict.
I think you have to have two categories, one for farming, one for ranching. And on the ranching one, of course, you are not going to be permitted in those lot sizes that are too small.
Okay.
Okay, we'll take that into consideration. Okay,
Charlene?
Yes.
I think that's confusing to a property owner. If I'm looking through the code and I look at the land use, and I look at the land use matrix, and I see ranching is permitted, and I have a half-acre lot, and I put a horse on it, then you come back and tell me, wait, you didn't read further in, you didn't read the whole code. It's not allowed on a half-acre lot. You're setting yourself up for a fight with somebody. I mean, I understand, we understand that the more restrictive ordinance controls, but I'm not sure a property owner is going to read to that level of detail.
Chair, Commissioners Zerniak, something to consider under section 511, the keeping of animals. It basically starts with, and I'll just read off of the code. The following regulations are established for the keeping of animals on residentially zoned districts. And then it mentions R5, R5L, D1, D1L, T2, and T3. So I guess in order for there not to be a conflict, I mean, if we look at this section, then maybe a recommendation should be to take the Ps off of T4, T5. And
D3 and
But you're
DM.
also taking the crops growth off of T4 and T5. That's why I say you
it
need,
would be farming and ranching. It would be the whole, unless we separate the two categories.
unless you split it.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually.
Yeah, to split.
And Albert, in that section on keeping of animals, someplace in there, the word ranching ought to appear.
Let's look at the definition.
The definition of farming and ranching is any use of the land for the growing and harvesting of crops, the open range grazing of livestock, or irrigated pasture for grazing livestock for sale or profit, or uses that are directly ancillary to these on-farm scalable activities, which is the exclusive or primary use of the lot.
So you're talking about commercial activity,
Right.
commercial farming, commercial ranching, not somebody that has a pecan tree like Bill in his yard for his use. So I think Teresa's idea is a good one, to split those because they're fundamentally different.
Yes.
You can have an apple, 20 apple trees. I can even think of some spots where that occurs.
Yep.
But the question is, if you have 3 horses, that's going to be controlled by the section that Albert was reading. So that means that section should have the word ranching in it somewhere.
Well, it's like what Dr. Sterniak's talking about. I think the two issues here, one of this is the difference between private use and commercial. I think there's got to be some sort of definition of defining those two differently. But also it's a question of scale. If you're in an area where the largest property can be 1 acre, that doesn't preclude the possibility of having a commercial operation. Because like Dr. Sterniak said, on a single acre, you could have 40 pecan trees. Mm-hmm. And that would be a commercial use of that property. But it seems like the way this is set up, and I agree with Teresa, I think breaking the farming and ranching, separating those two, because as Dr. Sterniak said, those are fundamentally two different things. Mm-hmm. and would be very different to the neighbors. Yes. If one of those two were happening there. So I think there still needs to be some work on that based on whether it's commercial or not, what the scale is, and whether it's farming or ranching. Plus, it's also determined by the other code that Albert was referring to. So I think there's got to be some finessing of this in order to clarify this.
Okay, we'll take that back into consideration, and we'll take it into consideration. We added let me go back. we're going back and forth. Grain storage, so we're okay with that in a T2, a T5, I mean an R5, R5L. We have it at a D1 and a D2 also. I mean D1 and D1L. And R5. So livestock pen, it's a permitted use in a T2, permitted in a T3, R5 and R5L. And we took the ag off of that. Stable boarding, training, or riding facility, we put it's permitted in a T2, R5 permitted, R5L. And we added, on the construction yard and equipment related sales, we added parking, outdoor, or enclosed storage. On mini storage units, we added RV and boat storage since they go together. Wrecking services, we added a storage only, no dismantling, because we're having problems with that also. Going down to table 5.5, we're taking lodging off of a T4. We had it at a cap of 12 rooms, which is ridiculous because a T5 is, you know, going towards a town center. On general use standards, we took out mobile home parks or recreational vehicle parks. That we cannot allow travel trailers in a mobile home park. It's only allowed in recreational vehicle parks. On general use standards 8, commercial vehicle parking, we took out as defined by the tax assessor's record since we can't enforce that. For on-site farm operations only, we added, and one semi-truck cab only may be parked on the property. Other structures, and we worked with legal on this one, and we came up with this verbiage. Let's see, in any residential accessory building shall not be allowed except where a principal building is permitted and exists prior to the construction of the accessory building or accessory structure. If a shipping container is used as a structure, an accessory structure, or an accessory building, or for other purpose, a building permit is required. A principal building must exist or a permit issued, therefore, prior to the issuance of a permit for the shipping container. The installation shall meet all other development standards for structures, accessory structures, or accessory buildings. If an accessory structure or an accessory building is located within a FEMA or SFHA, a floodplain development permit is required. We're having problems with shipping containers and then just putting them on properties, and then we're finding them and telling them that they have to have a permit.
On the language about the shipping container,
Yes.
it seems like you could eliminate a lot of that verbiage in between because you finish that sentence with for any other purpose. Why doesn't the sentence just say if a shipping container is used for any purpose, a building permit is required?
And Chair, just to, clarify, this section specifically,
Yes.
we ran it by legal, we sat with the
Yes.
legal.
It just seems funny that you enumerate a couple of reasons why, but then say for any purpose.
Yes, we're trying to cover a great big
Okay.
catchment of
All right, it
problems
just-
that we're having in the county with,
I know lawyers love words, but I'm not sure that all of those are needed, that's all.
So basically, you're saying can't have any more shipping containers.
unless they have a permit. They have to have a building permit for it.
For each and every one.
Yes, each and every one.
Oh, boy.
I mean, well, Chair, I mean, that's, or Commissioner Fisher, that's already a requirement. I mean, you already need it, it's already in the code, in the building code, that a container does need some kind of permit. You know, they gotta show how they're gonna be, you know, how they're gonna be set on the ground, how they're gonna be tied to the ground. That's part of the building code already. But this section specifically is just for, you know, to clarify that if you have a vacant piece of property, you can't just move in
Right.
containers on there. You need to have a primary use, and by a primary use, you gotta have a residence already there. We have a lot of people just, you know, dragging in, you know, shipping containers, using property for storage, including businesses, you know, that it's not allowed under, you know, a residential zone. So we're just trying to clarify that you need to have a primary use on a property before you can start moving in accessory structures, shipping containers, or building just a garage, you know, by itself without even having a home on there. So that's the intent of this section.
What you're saying is that the container is not the primary use.
A container is not going to be a primary use.
Cannot be, but if you have another use and you bring a container in to store equipment or something,
You still need a building permit.
you
So-
still need a permit.
So let's just say, you know, somebody's farming. You know, that's already an established use on there. So you can have an accessory structure there to, you know, keep your farming equipment there, to store, you know, a tractor or whatever. But if it's just a vacant piece of land,
Then you can't.
then you can, because the primary use has not been established on the property yet. And an accessory structure, such as a shipping container, that's not a primary use.
No, it's not. Okay.
We're having problems, and this is taking people to court, and the judge has come back and said that our UDC is vague. So that's why we had to work with legal to come up with some verbiage that we have some teeth in the UDC when we go to take people to court when they're doing this stuff, because we're getting denied by the judicial system because our UDC is not clear enough. And that's why this is here.
And that is under a section that is for primary use, right? In other words, what I'm saying is that you're looking at now going out and looking at all these different places and businesses and homes, and anybody that's got a container, you're gonna have to cite them for having that container without permits and for all this, or what? Or is this strictly, if you have a piece of land that is zoned residential, you cannot bring a container and sit it on there unless it's been permitted, because the intent is it's going to be residential and it has to be permitted either way.
Yes, I mean, that's correct. And I mean, we don't have code enforcement, you know, actively looking for you know, driving through every neighborhood, looking at every house, you know, making sure that everybody has their permits. You know, they're very complaint oriented. But, you know, so we've had previous complaints from neighbors, you know, where where they'll have somebody next to them who's just storing containers on site.
Okay.
And then, so when code enforcement has to go out there and act on that, you know, and they've referenced, you know, this section of the code that's, you know, that's already been determined by judges that it's not, you know, that it's too vague to enforce. So, you know, that's why we have to, you know, basically add more language to make it clear. But just, just so we're all on the same page, a container or any other accessory structure does need a permit. You know,
On farm. I mean, I'm concerned more for farming. I mean,
and for farming, like I said, I mean, if it's a farming operation, that's already the primary use.
Yeah.
That's there. So if somebody's going to be setting a container as a permanent structure on the property, then they're going to have to get a building permit.
a building permit to store equipment. I don't know. Okay. It's a bit stringent I mean, we are an agricultural area, and every farmer that I know has got containers. They store their products, they store their tools, and now we're having a building permit for all of them. I mean, that's a bit far. That's gone too far. I don't agree with that part.
Okay, we'll go back with the comments. Okay, the next one is outside storage. We had to beef this one up too. We have people coming in maybe 2-3 times a week and ask us, how many storage buildings can I put on my property? Or how many 120 square feet buildings can I put on my property for storage? We get that question weekly from people that come in. And so we're telling them you have to have a primary use. It has to be residential. You have to have a house on there. It has to be commercial. It has to be industrial. Some kind of use that defines the property, what they're doing. So we're telling them you cannot do that. You have to have a primary use. You have to have a home. Then you can have an outdoor storage or whatever that you want to. And it has to be permitted if it's over 120 square foot.
It's over 120 square foot.
Okay, so now we have outdoor storage, because that question comes up a lot. And outdoor storage of any material that totals 200 square feet or greater shall be enclosed by a 6-foot solid wall or opaque fence on all sides. That isn't new. We've had that in the UDC. We added outdoor storage or enclosed storage of any kind shall not be permitted as a primary use on any residentially zoned property.
So if I have a 10 by 20 tough shed storage building, you're telling me I have to put a wall around that?
That's already enclosed.
This is for outdoor storage, so.
Yeah, this is outdoor storage.
Outdoor storage.
Oh, so if I'm putting farm equipment?
Yes.
Just, okay, got it. I understand.
Okay.
And Sharon, going back to containers, some of the wording appears to be very, very restrictive.
It's hard to read it this way. When we did it, we took off all the markings off to read the sentence to make sure it made
What
sense.
section are you in?
We're in
No, but 350, what?
it's in 502B
502?
10.
Okay.
It's after all those,
For all the tables?
maybe, I don't.
V11?
V11,
But this section that you're changing right there is where?
Are you looking at your packet, Commissioner?
Sorry?
Are you looking at the packet or is it the code?
I'm in the book
Oh, in the book?
that you gave. See, I'm trying to see what you're changing. It's because it's kind of confusing what you got there. I see that you're working on this one, okay? You're looking in here, okay, and so you're changing from other stuff.
The old language is stricken out that's in there. That's what's in the UDC. And we're adding all this other stuff.
But these regulations are general to all zones, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Seemed like it was clear before.
Well, the judge said it was vague, and we didn't have any standing in the case because it was vague.
Okay, so this is all, that number 10 refers to residential
Yes.
only.
Yes, residential only.
Residential only, that's all we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I was trying to find. What are you talking? All right, and then the next one, the outdoor storage also is in reference
Yes, to
to
residential.
residentials?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Got it.
Okay. So on C, we added this for engineering on a 2-lot split, I believe. We changed the zoning administrator to county engineer in these A, B, and C. Number 6, A and B, because it pertains to engineering, it doesn't, the zoning administrator doesn't have any authority over the engineering stuff. So, this is building separations on D. We added unless otherwise specified in this chapter, there shall be no more than 6 feet between 6 feet between detached buildings or structures on the same lot, measured eave to eave or wall to wall, if no projection. And then we also took off, let me go back up, to B. We struck out the 5-year period shall be determined on the approved residential site plan for the development of a claim of exemption application. We struck that out. And we just added only one approval per parcel. Every parcel may be granted under this subsection. And we're taking out the 5-year limit out. I believe this is where people are coming in and they're subdividing the property with a claim of exemption. And then after that 5-year period, they come in for another claim of exemption. So we're tightening that up so that they have to go through the summary subdivision. And then D, on the principal buildings and building separations, we added that unless specified, otherwise specified in this chapter on the separations of the buildings. And then we added here, this is coming to the 3,000 square foot accessory buildings, or 10% of the lot, whichever is less. And I know Dr. Zerniak had expressed concerns over the size of the structure.
So
Still?
what happened to my concern?
Pardon me?
What happened to my concern?
Well, we're here for discussion.
So how did you come up with 3,000 square feet?
We use what they have for accessory buildings. We just put that in, the same as accessory buildings. So that's where we came up with the 3,000 square feet. People are coming in with, they want bigger accessory dwellings on their property. So,
Right.
so we just threw that in and copied what we had for accessory structures. Not a dwelling in this accessory structure like a barn or a garage or things like that. So we just put that in there, 3,000 square feet, or 10% of the lot area. That's, yeah, 3,000 square foot home is pretty big
Yeah, it is.
as a secondary
So is it-
dwelling.
So accessory,
Yeah.
an accessory
Oh, that's-
building is not a dwelling or an office.
Right.
Yeah, Chair, Commissioner Zerniak, just, I guess a little bit of history on that. In the ETZ, when it was still around, I believe people were able to go up to 1,600 square feet. when we were proposing the amendments for the UDC, I think the first proposal was like 800 square feet. And, people thought that was a little bit too small to have an accessory dwelling or a casita. So, in order to find some, in order to compromise or find some middle ground, I think we settled on 1250. But, what we've been seeing is, people applying for administrative variances because, they can't meet the 1250 requirement because now instead of a single wide mobile home, now they want a double wide mobile home or something like that, because the zoning allows for it. And even though it's still an administrative variance, I mean, for the most part, if there's no opposition, they typically just get approved. So I guess we're just trying to eliminate, a little bit of the red tape. If we're seeing some, an administrative variance for 30 extra square feet, do we really want to, go through that whole process for that, or maybe just extend, the square footage that people can do for an accessory dwelling? So, I mean, if 3,000 square feet, seems a little bit big, then maybe, we can find some other type of middle ground. Like I said it before, 1,600 square feet was the square footage that was allowed under the old ETZ. We settled on 1,250 for the UDC. So, maybe, we can have a discussion on what would be, the appropriate size. As the regulations sit right now, an administrative variance would be a 20% deviation from what's currently allowed. So anything less than 1,500 square feet, or from 1,250 to 1,500 square feet would require an administrative variance. Anything more than that would require a full-blown variance that requires a public hearing. So, just to throw some numbers around.
So Albert, the size to me is almost irrelevant if you have a justification for it. And I'm wondering if you go back and look at what we've granted for variances or just accessory buildings or structures, say over the last 10 years, is there some number that pops up? That's what I'm wondering. So I'm looking for a justification. I mean, if somebody comes in and says they want a 4,000 square foot accessory building, and we say no, and it goes to court, the judge, you know what the judge is going to say? What's the basis for the 3,000 square feet?
It's too arbitrary. Albert, in La Union, the Wright Farm has those huge buildings there. That would be considered an accessory dwelling. It's pre-existing, so I mean it's grandfathered in. But I know that barn there is probably well over 3,000 square feet if it's still standing. I haven't gone by there in a while, but.
So, Chair, Commissioner Zerniak, I mean, we can make a note of that. We can go back and look at the variances and the SUPs that we've allowed in the past and kind of get like an average number of,
Yeah. That's all I was asking.
I agree, but I'm not opposed to 3,000.
I think that the percentage would be better. Dr. Zerniak, I think that maybe the percentage would be more, would be a better way of defining it, right?
Well, unless somebody owns 10 acres.
Yeah.
And we say 10% of 10 acres, that's huge. I mean, that's what? That'd be like a 40,000 square, no. The point is, whatever the number is, we have to have some kind of rationale for it. So I would just let them go back and look and see what we've done in the past.
Okay.
And it might be 3,000 square feet. I don't know.
It might be more.
But this is, yeah.
We've had difficult cases that have come up that were in excessive and they've been denied here at the PNC. So we're trying to address that also.
Maybe basing it on usage. No?
I mean, one thing that I will point out is the UDC has been very flexible, at least when it comes to accessory dwellings. I mean, we've cut back so much on special use permits for a second home. I mean, even before the UDC, if you were out in the county, you had to get an engineer to draw you up a site plan for a second home. So I think the UDC at least has helped out a lot on that, where people depending on their zoning, they can at least, they're able to put a second home on their property, without having to get an engineer or just by submitting a building permit or a mobile home permit if it's allowed, so.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and the other ones, this is for, this next table is for D1. And we put 3,000 square feet or 10% of the lot size on all of them, where it's permitted for an accessory dwelling.
Okay.
So now we're coming into the cannabis. And this is on 35502. On number 2, we, for purpose of this section, all measurements determining the location of a cannabis establishment, cannabis consumption area, cannabis courier in relation to residential areas, schools, or daycare centers shall be the shortest direct line measurement between the actual limits of the real property of the residential area, school, or daycare center, and the actual limits of the licensed premise of the proposed cannabis establishment, cannabis consumption area, or cannabis courier.
Sharon,
We took real property off and added the licensed premises residential area. Licensed premise.
Sharon, is a pharmacy allowed to sell cannabis?
I don't know.
No.
No?
Well, you have to go through the whole process. I mean, if it's like Walgreens wanting to sell, wanting to get in the cannabis business now, they would have to meet, the intent of the code or the regulations that are in the code. So by right, no, you have to comply with the UDC and the requirements by the state. So,
Well, I'm just,
So you're,
yeah, the answer would be, not by right. You
well,
would
I
have
was
to
just,
apply.
what if, there's a what if, right? Say a pharmacy had a license to sell cannabis, all right? And it was existing, and however, there's a school or church within the 300 feet, what happens then?
If there's a school and, they're within 300 feet, then they would have to apply for a special use permit. That's what's in the code right now. Anybody who's retail and they're within 300 feet of a residential area or within 300 feet of another retail establishment or school, then they would have to apply for a special use permit. We saw that last time. I think our last case was the one in Chaparral, off of Paloma Blanca Drive.
That's what I'm
they were
getting
here
at.
because they had a residential development right behind them. So when it comes to retail and retail specifically, we're just talking about retail right now. The UDC does allow for a special use permit if they're within 300 feet of a residential area.
Yeah, I was trying to get back to that case in Chaparral. Okay.
But just to clarify, go ahead, Commissioner.
so when you say the actual limits of the licensed premise, you're just talking about the building,
Right.
right?
Chair and Commissioner Zerniak, that's correct. So even though we're just, changing one word on here, the impacts are going to be, pretty significant. As it's written right now, you have 100 acres. If you want to grow cannabis, and you have 3 neighbors that have, a residence, abutting your property, you can't do it. You have to create your own buffer, split out the property, go through all these steps. So what we're saying by adding the word licensed premises instead of real property is that if you have 100 acres and your growing area, your fenced-in area is going to be right smack in the middle of your property, 1,000 feet away from the nearest residence, there should be a reason why you can't do it. That's basically the change that we're proposing today. We're not getting into the, those businesses that are in existence, that are grandfathered in, because a lot of those businesses are in the middle of residential areas. So the whole, when the BOCC made that change, when they added that word, residential areas in there, they basically said, no more cannabis production, in the middle of a subdivision, or in the middle of a higher density, residential neighborhood. That was the intent. But, the other side of that was that, now anybody who had, a large piece of property who was out in the rural area, if they happen to have a neighbor, then they weren't able to do it either. So that's the effect, and that's the issue that we're trying to fix. That if you're able to locate a production facility far away from a residential area, then you should be able to do it.
But this doesn't pertain to growing cannabis, does it, Albert?
It does. It's for a cannabis establishment. So under the definition of cannabis establishments, we have micro businesses, we have producers, manufacturing, laboratories. I think those are all defined under cannabis establishment.
But if you're saying licensed premise, that implies a building.
A building, or in regards to cannabis production, it would be the licensed premises would be whatever is fenced in.
Okay. So you would go to the, I see. You would go to the fence line. So if they fenced in their whole property, you'd go to the corner of the property, right? Shortest distance between the between the residential property line and that fence line.
That's correct. Whatever the Cannabis Control Division dictates or determines what the licensed premises is.
Okay.
You ready to move on?
Yeah.
Mobile food trucks, we added this whole section in here, H, and it's all new. Mobile food vending businesses, mobile food vendors shall follow all applicable state and local laws, including fire code, zoning code, occupation tax codes, and obtain a state license from the New Mexico Department Food Handlers Card. And we have defined what the mobile food vendor may operate in a location as permitted in Table 5.1, the land use classification matrix, as long as the food vending vehicle is not parked within 20 feet of an intersection and has written approval from the property owner. A mobile food vendor may operate from legal parking spaces with permission from the property owner business, or so long as there is adequate parking for all uses. An approved site plan shall be submitted with the building registration. All display signs must be placed in areas that do not obstruct traffic, clear by triangle or public view. A minimum of 1 30-gallon waste receptacle shall be required on site at all times. And then we're going down to section I, which is, I don't know, do you have questions on the mobile food vending section, H?
Yes, I have a question. You state here that it should not be parked within 20 feet of an intersection.
Right.
Wouldn't it be better to say it was within 20 feet of a roadway? Because this way, I could be away from an intersection, but I could be right up against the road.
And they're parking there.
They have to be on that person's property. They cannot be in the right of way.
But I'm saying that I can be more than 20 feet away from an intersection, but I can be sitting right on a road that's not an intersection.
Right. Well, we can add that in there, I guess. We'll change the intersection to, okay. So let's go down to I.
Charlene, on that definition, do you need to say if you say mobile food vendors shall follow all applicable state and local laws,
Okay.
do you really need that last phrase about obtaining a state of New Mexico food handler's card? Isn't that an applicable state law?
Yes, it is, and it is on our business registration that they have to have that for food vendors.
Well, a food handler is somebody that serves food,
Right.
not somebody that makes food.
Okay.
So are you talking about a food production license? They're different.
Oh, okay.
There's a state, I don't know if it's, I guess it's a permit that allows someone to make food.
Yes, there is a permit for that.
But food
So
handlers
that's
also
different.
make food.
That's different from a food handler.
A food handlers also makes food. I mean, you also make the food. You're handling food, period, whether you're making it or you're serving it. You're handling it.
Oh, okay.
Because the
I mean, I have
restrictions in a food handler's permit are how you refrigerate it, how you cook it, everything. So it is cooking and serving, okay?
I went to the state site to look for what they needed, and that this is what they had on their website was a food handler's card. And I looked at other ordinances from Albuquerque and from Santa Fe. I researched it, and this is what they have in their zoning codes also.
My comment is that it's a mobile food vending business, but what I see in Anthony are these mobile trucks that are parked there forever and ever in one location, and they've got all sorts of coverings over them, and so they're not moving anywhere. They're a restaurant, and I get concerned because a restaurant owners has so much restriction to be able to prepare food and serve it and everything, and these people don't have any of those restrictions.
That's correct, and that's why we're addressing it here in the UDC, because it's a problem in the entire county. We have a case in Doña Road where they're parking by the post office, and they're having a little war there too. So, anywhere that they can park a food truck, competition comes and they get into a little vending war there.
Does Albuquerque put a time limit on these?
No, they don't. But right now, Albuquerque did a moratorium on the mobile food vending because they had a great big fight there on Coors Road. So I don't know how they're going to address it, but they're having problems too, just like we are.
I mean, if it's mobile, it means that if addressing what Teresa's talking about, they should move out at some point.
It's hard to regulate it because they come out after hours, after 5 o'clock. Here they come with their little, and it's not just a food truck. They have, trailers with a tough shed on it or whatever and sell out of that. But I understand, I think that Artie isn't here anymore. I think they're going to require commercial vent for the food trucks. And those are $5,000 or $10,000 for that, for a commercial vent. So I don't know how that's going to affect. But we have to have something in the UDC that we can point to when people come for a mobile food truck vending, that we can say, you can't do this.
And see, the other thing is that as a customer, when I go into a restaurant, I know they have a permit to operate. And then I know they also have their food handlers information and available for you to see. When you go to a mobile truck, you don't know any of this. There isn't any kind of a posting anywhere. You're just taking a chance.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Taking a chance.
Any questions on this?
Okay.
Are we ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay. So the next one is the campgrounds. So, and I got this from the Chaffee County, their ordinance on campgrounds. And so it may not always apply to us, but it's in here, we can hash it out. Campgrounds of recreational vehicles and RV parks. The following standards shall apply to applications for new campgrounds, RV parks, additions to an existing campground, RV park, and primitive or semi-primitive campgrounds. A campground shall have an area of not less than 5 acres and sites for no more than 15 campsites per acre. The maximum gross density within a campground shall be 15 campsites per acre. Land not accessible to campers shall not be included in the calculations of the gross density. Each site shall provide parking spaces of adequate size to accommodate the vehicles allowed at the same site, such as parking spaces. Such parking spaces shall be constructed so that no portion of such vehicles shall extend onto any street within the campground. All recreational vehicles, tents parked or attached to the ground for use as oversight accommodations shall be on a campsite as defined by this section. Campgrounds and RV parks shall have adequate design to reduce risk from wildfires, shall not be located in flood zones, and shall have a posted evacuation route that does not traverse through a defined arroyo or a risk of being severed by wildfires. Layout and design requirements, campsites shall comply with the following requirements. Recreational vehicles, mobile homes are not permitted as in a recreational campground. Recreational campgrounds shall be at least 1,650 square feet minimum lot size for each space within a recreational vehicle campground. Tent size, minimum of size of each space within a tent site shall be 600 square feet. Group tent sizes shall be permitted as long as the maximum number of sites of the group site is designed and the group site density complies with the overall density, water supply, and sewage disposal requirements of the campground. All tents within the campground shall be located a minimum of 12 feet away from combustible materials. Campsites shall have a perimeter of 20 feet to the next campsite and shall be located within 100 feet from a public right-of-way. The minimum setback requirement may be reduced if the campsite is totally obscured from sight by natural barriers. Where campsites abut mobile home parks, the minimum setback may be reduced to 10 feet along the boundary between the mobile home park and the campground. There's toilet, and the next one is toilet and lavatory facilities. For primitive campsites, a solid waste facility shall be required unless park-in, pack-out policy is in place. For semi-private primitive sites, each sanitary station shall have water flush toilets and shall not be further than 300 feet from the campsite, not provided with an individual sewer connection. A minimum of 1 unisex toilet and lavatory shall be provided for the first 20 campsites. For each additional 20 campsites not provided for sewer connections, 1 additional toilet and lavatory shall be required. That's the section of campgrounds.
Are we requiring permits for these campsites? The question is, there's a program called Harvest Host that many people participate in, and so now are you requiring a permit? And even a Walmart that allows somebody to park their RV, how far are we carrying this? Have you considered those items, those
No, we have
options?
not.
I think, the idea, if the amendment's approved and all that, the idea is to, sit down with an applicant. The applicant's gonna have to, bring in a site plan, give us a basic layout of, where the areas are gonna be for campgrounds and all that stuff. It's gonna have to be reviewed. There's gonna be an agency review component to this, and they're probably gonna require a business registration as well. So it's not just like, okay, I have 10 acres and now, I have a campground out here. It's gonna have to be planned out by the applicant and working with staff.
Now, I'm just saying that you need to consider that there are some overnight parkings that are programs that are available online, and they're used by many of the wineries and many of the businesses, and I mean including the Walmarts, that allow people to park. So, I don't know, some way to make sure that that doesn't have to be something we have to regulate, you know?
Well, a couple months ago, we did a zone change for Rio Grande Winery because their intent was to build an RV park, on the rest of their property. So, I mean, I guess it's just gonna have to be, it's gonna come down to what the actual applicant wants to do. I mean, we're talking about campgrounds, but, later on, we're gonna be talking about our RV parks and mobile home parks and how those differ. So, we're gonna end up with a section specifically for campgrounds, a section for RV parks, and a section for mobile home
But those
parks.
are businesses, and I understand
Right.
that. Okay.
And the reason we're putting this in the UDC is to have something to point to when we do catch them camping out there and they don't have their permits. Then we can point to it in the UDC, you need a permit for this and these other requirements that you have to meet.
Okay.
Okay, the next one is Section J, and it's recreational outdoor events. Outdoor recreational events are any planned assemblage open to the general public, held outdoors within the incorporated area of Doña County. Outdoor events may be included but are not limited to contests, carnivals, festivals, concerts, seasonal or annual events, competitions, car shows, art craft shows, and other similar activities that meet the definition listed in herein. And number 2, a special temporary use permit is required. So they have to come in with a site plan and a narrative so that we can look at and see what they're doing. We're getting requests all the time for outdoor weddings, especially in the summertime.
I agree.
We get that a lot. Okay, and now we're coming down to regulations specific to use zones. And we have regulations specific to DM zones, which is for mobile home parks. The DM zone is for mobile and manufactured homes. For additional standards, okay, we took out recreational vehicles out of that. So we took out residential vehicles, we took that out, okay, so. And we took RV out of that. And then we took out 10, 11, and 12 because that all related to the RV parks. Okay, we're coming down to the glossary. We added a definition. We addressed the issues with the Jackson case of the accessory dwelling, that they can, because the way it was worded before, it shall not be used for commercial sheltering or rental of individuals or families. It restricted the use on that accessory dwelling. So we took that out so that it would allow for them to be able to rent it out if they want to, like an Airbnb. We added the definition for addition, an extension or increase in floor size, floor area, number of stories, or height of a building structure in terms of size coverage, height, length, and gross floor area. We added a definition for agricultural animals. Animals considered accessory to agricultural use, whether used for personal enjoyment or for commercial purposes, including horses, mules, burros, sheep, cattle, rabbits, chickens, ducks, geese, pigs, goats, emus, and I don't see cows. Oh yeah, cattle's in there. And then on agricultural packaging and warehousing, we added on-site operations only.
Hi, Bruce.
How are you?
I'm okay.
Commissioner Zernak, can you go on mute, please? Okay, I think he's on mute.
Okay. And we added packaging and warehousing of off-site products. I'm not doing this. I don't know what's going on. off-site products may be permitted based on the size, intensity, and location of the existing operation. So that's what we have to go back and look at.
And Dr. Zerniak, did we settle the word intensity on agriculture?
I don't think so, Mel. I don't think so.
We have to go back and work that out.
Charlene, just a question about these two definitions. So do you actually need those last sentences? That's actually about you're restating the regulation, not defining what it is. So do you actually need the last sentence in those two definitions?
No, we don't.
So I would just drop it.
Okay. We can take those out. And so we added a definition for agritourism because that comes up a lot. And it's also outdoor recreation, a form of commercial enterprise that links agricultural production and or processing with tourism to attract visitors onto a farm, ranch, or other agricultural businesses for the purpose of entertaining and or educating the visitors and generating income for the farm, ranch, and business owner. And of course, here's our definitions for the campgrounds, and we have it for a primitive, semi-primitive, semi-developed, and developed, and also for a campsite. We have all those definitions in there. In a canopy, we had to add this in there because of the food vendors putting canopies, and we want to make sure that they're movable, they aren't permanent, and so we put a definition in there for that.
So you said it's a permanent structure, though.
Yes, they have been putting permanent structures there. That's what's going on in Doña. They put a permanent shade structure there, and now we're having to go back and tell them to remove it. And so that's.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So they have to have they can have a canopy, but it's temporary, not permanent.
Yeah.
Okay, and the caretaker we put this definition in to meet with what the state requires and also the building code, what's required. So we put that as a definition. Dwelling unit efficiency, community building public. We added typically owned and operated by a governmental entity. And we added a dwelling unit efficiency. This is from building services. They asked if we could put this in there so they could point to this. We put a definition for environmental improvement division. A definition for event center. And of course, the farming and ranching, we're going to separate that out. We have to go back and work with that one. A definition for the food handler's card. So it says in here, food employees, persons who handle food, utensils, and food contact services who do not qualify for a valid certified food production manager certificate, can't say the word, a certificate that is required for all food employees are not involved in the preparation, storage, or service of food in a food facility obtained through the State of New Mexico Health and Environment Department. So we have to add something in there for the food production.
Why are you putting in this food handler manager certification in the food handlers? That's a totally different thing. Food handler, the manager is.
That's what I'm saying. We're going to have to separate that out and put a
Yeah, it's a
definition for
completely
that.
separate certification.
They're two separate things. That's what I'm saying.
Don't confuse it in that food handlers area.
Yes, so we'll have to go back and work that one out too. We added a definition for food vending and vehicle. Any vehicle used to sell food or beverages by a mobile food vendor. We put a definition for glamping because we're getting a lot of questions about glamping. And ground set, we put a definition in there because people ask, what does ground set mean? And group homes, we changed it from 6 to 5 to meet the building services, the building code. A licensed premise. we added establishment. This is for cannabis. We took retailer or cannabis consumption area to establishment. Put a definition for food vendor, mobile food vendor, outdoor recreational event, a personal care service, push carts. We tightened that up and put ice cream carts on there.
Popcorn carts.
A puzzle room, we got that from building services. Sleeping unit from building services. Definition for tent, vending cart, a vendor itinerant, vendor temporary site specific, and wrecking services. This one is coming up a lot. We're getting complaints from people who are putting vehicles on lots and dismantling them. So we're having to put this in there to make sure that it has some teeth in there. And then, of course, a definition for a yurt, because that's come up for glamping. Yes. So, and then acronyms, we added EID. And the other two are just, this one here, this is a detail for a garden wall, the standard. We're putting this in there so we can give to people how they have to put their rock walls up. And then we added another thing here. We get this question a lot. Where does the property line, where's the setback, where's the easement, where can I start building my rock wall? So we're adding this in there. So it's clear and we can give out to builders or people that come and ask. And that's the conclusion of the amendments. Amen.
So, Commissioner, it looks like we have a, couple of items.
Just for this.
We have a couple of items to address, so we will be bringing this item again at the next P&Z meeting with some changes and recommendations. I know there's members of the public here, so I don't know if the chair wants to maybe give members of the public here an opportunity to maybe give a comment on the proposed amendments. Yep.
Hi, folks. Can you put up the paragraph on cannabis, please? Hi, Rick Rose.
And step forward to the microphone so we can hear you. There you go.
How's that, better? Yeah, okay. Well, I have some, about this paragraph here, I just have some questions and some clarifications. I think the thing is well-written and well done, but there are some potential areas that I think need clarification. For instance, there is what if there is a legal cannabis grow operation that has been here for several years, operating with all the necessary permits from the state and from the county. And part of the building now is less than 300 feet.
And let me interrupt you. And if this is a case that may be coming in front of us, okay? We don't want to have any privy information regarding this issue, okay?
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, in other words, if this is regarding a case that you may be representing, or
This is just in general.
Yeah,
just as a general rule, if there's a business that has a structure, and part of that structure now is encumbered by the 300-foot regulation, how does that fit the entire business? Does that render the entire business inoperable? Because most of the business is not within the 300 feet, does that make the entire place operable? Or the third option may be, can that business still grow in the area that's not encumbered by the 300-foot requirement and not grow in that particular area of the structure? I would like to know that.
I'm gonna,
I don't know the answer to that.
Albert, can you answer that question?
I'll try to answer.
It's a two-part question, it looks like.
Just in general comments, if there's an existing business that happened to be, there was an existence prior to the, that section of the code being amended, to be more specific, now that the BOCC pretty much prohibited any cannabis establishment within 300 feet of a residential area. If that business was in existence, anything that got approved that had a valid building permit for that cannabis establishment, all that is grandfathered in. If it's a big enough property where there was room for potential growth, but there wasn't a building permit approved for that future proposal, then we can't call that in grandfathered in. We're only grandfathering in whatever had a valid building permit approved prior to that amendment taking change. You have other areas where the business is there, but there's no potential. They won't be able to expand anymore because they're right in the middle of a or next to a residential neighborhood. But in specifics where in other sites that were big enough, and now they want to expand further, as it is right now, without our proposal, just with the current rules, then we can't sign off on a building permit for an addition or for future expansion because of the way the code is written right now. If this specific amendment is passed, then in the future, and if it's approved by the Board of County Commissioners, then in the future, as long as the licensed premises is not within 300 feet of a residential, residential property, then they're going to be able to expand up to 300 feet of that distance. So that's the intent of the amendment.
There's a second consideration. You can't treat cannabis establishments any different than any other establishment that is a non-conforming use. What is it, section, I can't remember, whatever the section is, 35209, we would have to apply those rules to a cannabis establishment like any other business.
Did that answer your question?
Not really.
No.
No, not at all.
Okay.
It's still very confusing to me. So what I think he's saying is that if you occupy a portion of a building and that portion of the building is not encumbered by the 300-foot requirement, and you then want to expand into an area of that building which is still not encumbered, is that allowed or not allowed?
Well, say, let's do a what if, okay? Say you had a building, right?
Yeah.
And what portion of the building would be close within the 300 feet of whatever? Is that what you're asking?
No, I wish I had a whiteboard or something, I would draw it up there.
Right.
There's a structure.
Sure.
The structure is a 200,000 square feet of greenhouse, let's say.
Sure.
And there is a residence, and the 300-foot area around the perimeter of that residence, around the property line of that residence, cuts into a portion of the building, whether it's 10 feet or 500 feet. How does that render the rest of the building? Can the rest of the building be used if it's not occupied right now?
Well, Albert, you said it was on the specifics of what that building had been used before, right? On the permit for the construction of the
yeah,
building, right, before that?
Chair, as the code is written right now, you can't expand any further other than what you were already approved to do. So even if you have room for expansion, it's not allowed because of the way the code is written. If this amendment is passed, that means that now the potential for expansion is there. You just can't be within 300 feet of that residential property. And that's,
Potential for expansion is there if it is in accordance with what it was originally permitted, correct?
Well, the entire facility,
If the building was permitted for cannabis production or whatever,
correct.
then you can, and somebody comes in and puts a daycare next door, and as you say, it interferes with the 300-foot. If you want to expand your operation within that building, then you can't do it. If it's already there, it's already there. It's already been permitted.
if what's already there, if that had been approved
Right.
with the building permit.
Yeah.
I mean,
But if half of the building had been approved for cannabis and the other half not, then no.
if there are other structures on site
Yeah.
that could potentially be used for cannabis, but if those structures were never approved through a valid building permit, we can't consider that as part of the operation. It's only what has a final certificate of occupancy issued for the cannabis use. So if there were other buildings that could be used for cannabis because, they were growing other plants there, that's not a reason for allowing further expansion. It's only the areas that had a final certificate of occupancy. That's the way the code is right now. If
Albert, let me ask you a question. If, in order for that building to be approved, that 300-foot buffer would have had to have been in effect. Corner to corner on the property line, not the buildings.
Yeah, the way it is right now, no expansion can occur. That's the way it is. If the amendment passes, potentially they're able to expand, but only to a distance of 300 feet from a residential area.
So if a portion of the building,
Well,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
wait, no.
No, go ahead.
So if I understand the current code, in order for that facility to be approved, they would have had to meet the 300-foot limit, corner to corner property line. So there's no way that building could not be expanded into regardless, because it's more than 300 feet away from the property line.
When the permit was issued, but if the daycare comes in after the fact, that's what we're dealing with.
Well, then that would mean that the entire facility might be enclosed in the 300 square foot area. But we're talking about an existing facility that's been in place for years and many, many years. In the cannabis business since May of 2000.
No, now you're talking about a specific case. You
No,
have to be careful.
generally, if a building's been approved for a cannabis, say going forward, a building is approved for cannabis, there are no daycares or schools or anything within the 300 feet. It's approved, it's got a permit to operate. So there is no real expansion going on in that building, that's been approved for that business.
Not
But if you
according to
want to
him.
put another building in, as Albert says,
No, it's not, that's not what we're talking about.
then that's when it's not approved.
We're talking about a building that's got an occupancy permit for a portion of it, but not for the entirety of the building.
Okay, well, that's a
But the entirety of the building was constructed for a single purpose. And that purpose is being executed in the portion of the building that's being used now. What he's saying is, you can't expand into the rest of the building because there's a rule somewhere that says you can't do that.
because the whole thing wasn't permitted. Right?
Like I mentioned before, I mean, if there's other structures within that site that could potentially be used for the production of cannabis. If we didn't have a building permit approved prior to the amendments that restricted that use, then there's something we can do on our end. Staff will look at that as, the only legal non-conforming part of it being what has been approved, what we have a building permit for. So even if there's structures that could be modified, that could be remodeled or whatever to accommodate more production of cannabis, we can't count that as a legal use because of the amendments that occurred.
We're not talking about that. We're not talking about a structure that needs to be built or modified or changed in any way. There are 400,000 square feet, let's generally pick a number, of greenhouse. Half of it is being used. Why can't the other half be used?
Because we don't have a building permit.
Well, I'll
We don't
submit-
have a certificate of occupancy for that.
Okay. So we just have to ask for a building permit?
No,
Do the-
the amendment, the way the code is written right now, it doesn't even allow you for that. So that's why we're proposing this amendment right here, because at least, you might not be able, if it passes the way it is, you might not be able to use the entire property, but you might be able to use part of it.
Anything that's outside of the 300-foot area?
Yes,
Okay, I just want to make that very, very clear.
yes.
Is,
Okay. And
excuse
that-
me, is the cannabis licensing premise, is that very much like in the wine industry? The premise is it's a licensed premise. If it's even including a patio, it is a premise
Yes,
that you license, correct?
That's
A certain
correct.
area.
Yes.
That is defined.
that's from CCD,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, now the business license and the occupancy permits are from the county, and those are specifically for areas in the structure itself.
Let me ask you again. Your comments and questions and to get answers, and this is not to preclude the fact that maybe it may be a case of becoming in front of us. You're not doing that for questioning any of this, are you?
Not at the moment, no, sir. No, sir, I'm just asking in general.
Yeah, because
Just as a general case, how does this language apply? There are,
It's made it easier.
there are things in here, residential areas. The definition of a residential area per you folks is, and I read this in 2 weeks ago. Residential means activities within land areas used predominantly for housing. I don't know what that means. Does one house make it a residential area? Is that predominantly used for housing? 2 houses? If one house is on this side and there's another house on the other side, does that make it predominantly for housing? I don't know. It seems arbitrary and can be interpreted by a group of folks now, but what about 2 years from now when people move on, other folks can come in and interpret it completely differently? And I think that's problematic.
Albert.
We don't have a definition for a residential area. The way, staff has been interpreting, that aspect of it is, if there's a house, that's residential. It's residential, it's a residential use. And I think staff right now, I think we are being, lenient and favorable to the cannabis industry by interpreting it that way. And the reason I'm saying that is because we can also look at it as any property that's zoned residential, whether or not there's an existing home on it. I mean, we could have also taken that stance and basically outlawed cannabis production, for the most of the county. So I think, by stating that, if there's a house, an existing home, whether it's a mobile home, double wide, or side-built home, I think that would fall under the scope of residential area. And like I said, I mean, we can go either way. We can say, well, if that vacant lot's zone D1 or D2, well, that's a residential area, so you shouldn't be allowed to do it you know, but we're taking the stance that if it's vacant, we're not calling it a residential area because there's no physical home on there yet. So it's basically whatever comes there first. That's how we're looking at it. So we might not have a definition of residential area. We can work on it and maybe bring in you know, something for the PNC to look at, you know, at the next meeting. But that's how we've been applying that for now.
We'd like to.
Yeah, it could end up being more rigid than what it is now.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not quite sure it got cleared up, but.
Well, just to
I think I
summarize,
understand. My only question is, the language seems loose and can be interpreted in many different ways, and I'd just like to pin it down.
Nope, I don't think that's fair. What we're doing is talking about a policy that may be implemented. You cannot get a concrete answer when you're talking about future policy. And nothing that's said today should be used or could be used in a decision that's made by a zoning administrator, by the planning commission, or the county commission. We're talking about implementing a policy. That's all we're talking about. We're not talking about a specific case, and that should be understood.
No, I do understand that. I do, and this particular paragraph will affect hundreds and hundreds of people. So that's the point I want to make. It's not a specific thing. There are specifics, I'm sure, and I'm aware, as you probably know, of one or two of them. But I'm speaking in general for the industry itself. And as the gentleman on the phone said, the cannabis industry should be treated just like any other industry. And it appears that it's not being treated that way. So, but I appreciate what Albert said about the future. And if this passes, you know, it will be different. And the fact that if a structure impinges to some degree on the residential area, the balance of the structure that does not can still be used and can be expanded into at some point by right. And also, if that property is sold, the buyer has the same rights as the original owner does. And that's something that's not clear in this at all. I'm assuming that the buyer would have the same rights.
I mean, it's not clear in this section specifically, but yes, I mean, if something's approved on the property, it carries on with the property.
Yes.
It doesn't leave with new ownership.
Okay, that's great, I was not aware of that, so, well, that's it then. I guess we'll be back in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, folks.
Thank you. Okay, item number 6.
Approvals, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Staff input?
We do have Gary Esslinger scheduled to make a presentation at your next meeting, which is October 12th, 10th?
It would be October 10th. So we'll have a presentation. I don't think we have any cases for October 10th. So it's just going to be the presentation by Mr. Essinger and the amendments.
And the presentation will cover what topics? That he's going to present to us, or that we can actually ask him to give us some more information. I'd like to know the total acreage that is under Ag 1 status. I would also like to know all the farmland that has been, that is now foul land due to the fact that the water rights were sold, leased, or transferred. And Mr. Carrasco from the PCA, before we had the UDC, stated that most farms are actually sold from farmer to farmer. And so I'd like to know the amount of water that's actually being used and how it's being used in Ag 1 properties. And the next question is, I wasn't really prepared for that, but those areas or those farmlands that are close to the city that would have accessibility to being annexed by the city would have access to sewer. And what is his recommendations or opinion regarding alternative ways of irrigating farmlands? And I'm sure that he has a good feel for the number of gallons being used, or not gallons, I guess, acre feet of water in all the Ag 1 areas. If he can add all of that to his presentation, let's see. And the other one also would be like the types of crops that are being actually irrigated, like pecans or seedlings or pecans, because we see a lot of small trees that are planted, and all of a sudden they are picked up and sold to nurseries or maybe sold overseas or whatever. And so we had that issue with alfalfa and hay production regarding water usage. So can you give us an idea of how many acres there are regarding this and how much is being exported or sold? And it'll impact some of this, some of these amendments that we're looking at now. I wasn't prepared for this. And what is this outlook on our water aquifer? So many people now are, let's put it this way. On a follow-up from the presentation that we had from Dr. Sam Fernald, right? He gave us a pretty explicit understanding of how water is being used, and maybe he could also recommend the way we use water for Ag 1 purposes. Let's see.
Chair, I guess one thing we can do is, reach out to Mr. Esslinger and see if he can give us at least an outline of his presentation. And then we'll forward that over to the P&Z members and see if they want any other issues added besides,
And I'm sure that he has, I'm sure he's going to give us a lot of this information I'm asking for. But when you look at it, the Asombro Institute on Water Conservation data sheet, I'm sure he has information on that. And let's see here. And NMSU, the project uses satellite technology to evaluate southern New Mexico water resources. I'm sure he has information on that as well. And I hope that he continues to not just give us one presentation. I'd like to continue this because a lot of people are asking, what are we going to do when we have an influx of people coming into the area and we don't have enough water to accommodate the issue? We already had that up in Talavera not too long ago, okay? And I'm sure he has probably information on the Water Conservation Introduction Program that was instituted by NMSU. And there's a lot of studies on the big ag fields for New Mexico water crisis, I'm sure. And I'd like to ask him if he would be able to continue to give us additional information as we go through the rest of the year and next year, and have public hearings regarding this. And I'd like to really urge the Board of County Commissioners to really help us out with this and get a public input. Have them throughout the county or have them here, whatever, but schedule something that we can actually get more information regarding water usage.
Well, Mr. Eslinger's presentation be primarily with EBID, items that are under EBID's jurisdiction, water reclamation, selling back water, some water rights and that kind of thing. The new programs that they've got now for paying people to not use water for a year. Won't that be more along his lines? Some of these questions he may not be able to answer. You may have to bring other speakers.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, you guys can give us recommendations on items for him to try to address, and if it's under his purview, then I'm sure he'll address it. But I'm not sure the specifics, Janine, on what he's actually going to be talking about.
Yes, no, he specifically asked us what
Okay.
he should address to the commission.
I mean, there's a lot to talk. Janine, remember the seminars that we used to go attend and virtual seminars from some of the water experts? These are the people that we need to invite. And I'm sure that we're still in litigation or has been suspended. We see a lot of questions. Well, actually, you go to the grocery store and first thing, why is it that the water's still flowing in the river? And I said, well, it's a good question. How much of this water going to the state of Texas and state of Chihuahua, according to water compacts? People have asked me, what about desalination of water? What about water compacts between states? I said, I wish I could give you an answer. I don't even know where to start. And it's going to be a crucial topic from now on. And I think we need to address it before we get to the point that we're having problems as we see the influx of people coming in. And I guess that was my commission input. And also another one, maybe he knows if the federal government can help farmers to help them with financially with alternative ways of irrigation. Drip systems and who knows what else. I mean, I haven't had time to, a lot of time to do a lot of research. I've done some research, but it just seems that the more research I do, the more questions I have. But if we can have this going on, not just this year, but throughout the year, I think they would be really beneficial for all of us. All right. Item number 9. Make a motion.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Any discussion on the motion? No discussion. All those in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Dr. Zerniak, for attending.
Thank you, Mel.